Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to the Slumpbuster with Juju and Dre, episode 20, recording here on Thursday, December 12th, 2019. Find us on all major streaming platforms. On today's episode, we talk about the Patriots' latest scandal, AB's mental health, and UFC 246. Without further ado, welcome to our show.
Every day, ugly people running around. Pretty soon they'll have to pay. They think nobody's watching, but you better think again. Another heart is broken by the devil's old sin. So broken hearted, strangulating pain inside. Broken hearted, for the tears to dry. So broken hearted, hoping for the sun to shine. So broken hearted, if you wanna play, be prepared to play.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to another episode of the Slumpbuster podcast with Juju and Dre. Introducing Aundre Huynh. Welcome into the show, Aundre.
What up, Juju? You got to give our stats. I'm standing a full 5 foot 6 inches tall, 170 pounds.
You look up to no one, my friend, even at 5'6", even though you technically look up to everyone.
Or that's what I was thinking. I look up to everybody. So hey, 5 foot 6.5, actually, to be more accurate. 5'7" on a good day.
It's fine, man. I'm 5'10" here. I didn't break the 6 foot mark either. We're just stuck, in that abyss that is being a man that's under 6 foot.
This is why we talk about sports and we're not professional athletes. We just don't have the build for it, the genetics.
Hey, man, it's our time to live. Kyler Murray's out there. He's running around making some moves happen. Baker Mayfield, maybe 6 foot.
That's how tall his mustache is curled.
Yeah, when he curls that up or when he wears a stupid trench coat. He needs to burn that trench coat, man. He's just getting roasted again. Baker Mayfield looks like memes are back and they are live and active. I saw one this week that it looks like Baker Mayfield looks like a stepdad that's taking his girlfriend's kids out for pictures with Santa Claus and he has to wait in a 5-hour line. That's how Baker Mayfield looked like after his latest press conference against Cincinnati this week.
I know, it's so fun. And a lot of times I think athletes, they dress in weird styles, but Baker Mayfield's style is almost borderline just creepy.
Yeah, I mean, he needs to get a serious makeover. You'd think with Odell there, he'd be more styling and profiling right now. I feel like Baker Mayfield had so much swagger behind him last year, but all that credibility is just gone and out the window because look at him. He just looks like such a beaten down man. Maybe that's just what Cleveland does to you. Maybe that's just a sign of being out there longer than a year because he had all this energy, this youth, this enthusiasm coming out of Oklahoma. Boomer Sooner, we got this, guys. Let's go. And then obviously he is what he is now. You even saw it on LeBron. When you notice the hairline on LeBron started receding the most, it was probably during his time in Cleveland. It came back during Miami. It's now back in full right now that he's riding high with the Lakers. But in Cleveland, that thing was just practically at the back of his head already.
I know. And a dude with that much money, right? You'd figure that he'd be able to restore that really quick. But it's starting to also go away with the Lakers.
You think it's the pollution? Is that what's going on? I mean, I'm not trying to alienate our listeners potentially out there in Cleveland, Ohio. I would never do that, especially if I want to become a politician and need to get my Ohio voters down. But at the same time, guys, the number you do on professional athletes, it's noticeable.
Yeah, I think that state just ages you. The cold weather, the fans, right? The abyss that's known as the Cleveland Browns.
You also have Cincinnati you have to consider, too. I mean, the Bengals aren't that much more of an appealing franchise. You don't even have a basketball team. And the Reds, they haven't won a World Series since the 70s. And also, with that said, they've also been really, really bad the last few years. I don't know. It's just not a great time for Ohio sports. The only one that really wants to spend more time in Ohio these days seems to be Patriots film crews.
I mean, why wouldn't you, especially if that's your upcoming opponent, right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we talked about the Astros and how, man, this is most controversial, big time scandal in recent years. And the Patriots Hold my beer.
I know. I just can't believe this. And so basically to catch our listeners up, right, into what's going on, and I'm sure everybody knows this by now, but another one of the Patriots film crews got caught filming the field of an opponent in which they're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, so Spygate 3.0, because we dubbed the Houston Astros scandal Spygate 2.0. With this situation, it appears, how arrogant is this organization at this point? To send a film crew dressed in Boston Bruins, they might as well have been wearing Mark Wahlberg on their shirt, just to say, hey, forget about it. That's more Brooklyn, but regardless. Still, moving forward, come on, guys. Really? You get caught again? Really? You'd think you'd be good at this by now.
And what makes me so upset, and so Juju, I don't know where you stand on this, but I 100% think that they're guilty. I 1000% think that they're guilty. And what gets me is they're using the exact same excuses from the first Spygate incident back in 2007 or whatever it was. And they're still doing the exact same thing. They're saying, no, we're part of Kraft Productions or some other, sort of organization that's semi-tied to the Patriots without being the actual Patriots. Oh, we're going to give you excuses of, here's why we're here. We're made up. Like, oh, we're just filming a different segment on, this advanced scout or whatever it is that we're filming today. We had no idea of the rules. And then, oh yeah, can we just get rid of the evidence and forget this all happened? It's the exact same stuff that happened back in Spygate. The thing is they're so arrogant, they're going to do it again. They're going to use those exact same excuses. And people are dumb enough to still believe it.
So Kraft Productions sounds like quite the lie they're crafting. Okay. I had to. That was like sitting right there on the tee. I had to take a swing. But either way, the Patriots, again, are caught in this whole thing. They send someone to the press box. They're filming what they were reportedly saying was B-roll footage. They're supposed to be filming a documentary about this advanced scout they sent off to Cincinnati. It's supposed to be his episode. I don't know. I've never seen the Do Your Work series. I'm sure it has high production value, but I'm curious how that B-roll footage looks out, because I'm sure Roger Goodell in the league office will be giving it a good run through this coming week and in the weeks to come. What's going to be the make or break thing, I feel, with this scandal is this the only time this season they've been doing this? Because it's kind of like cockroaches. So like if you've seen one like kind of like going around your house or anything, just know that there's probably like thousands more somewhere else that are somehow getting into your home. We found a cockroach this week. How many more cockroaches do we have under the scenes?
It's unfortunate right now that people are just saying, hey, we're going to believe their excuse. I definitely think there needs to be a full-blown investigation. And from what I've heard, the NFL is leaning towards more believing their story than not. But to me, I don't think they deserve that benefit of the doubt. Like, they've proven time and time again that they're going to find ways to cheat, and they continue to find ways to cheat. They don't deserve the benefit of the doubt. And I think you're exactly right. I don't think that this is the first time that they've done it this year. And I think there needs to be investigations into more instances in which it's happened.
Hypothetically, if they are found guilty, what do you do if you're the league office? I mean, the Patriots have been one of the breadwinners of the NFL over the last, 2 decades now.
I banned Bill Belichick. I banned Bill Belichick for at least the remainder of this year and all of next year.
I guess that's a possibility, considering, okay, so you had Sean Payton, who wasn't directly telling players to go out there and headhunt, but because his defensive coordinator, Greg Williams, was telling players to do that, he got suspended a year. So I guess it would be a fair punishment for Bill Belichick to also receive a year-long suspension or a year-long ban. But that does also bring in a good question here. So obviously, when it comes to stuff like Major League Baseball, they completely banned Pete Rose completely from the Hall of Fame. If, let's say, this investigation goes and they've been filming people all season, is that on the table?
I absolutely believe it is. And so here's the thing, right, is a lot of people are saying, well, what he did is not that bad, or what happened is not that bad. And yes, in this one instance, it's not that bad, right? Like, okay, I've heard they had 8 minutes of film, and most of it was focused on the field and filming the sideline, which that tells me if there's already 8 minutes of filming the sideline and the field, there's probably going to be a whole lot more of them stealing signals and watching what's on the field. But all of the Patriots scandals added together. So you got Deflategate, which everybody knows 11 out of the 12 footballs that the Patriots were playing with were deflated, right?
Here's what I'll say real quick about Deflategate. I never really cared much about it. Realistically, they blew out the Colts by like 40 points in that game. I don't think a deflated football really mattered that much when your running back has 4 touchdowns.
But that's the thing, is deflated footballs make it much harder to punch the ball out. And it makes it much easier to catch the ball And at least in those type of conditions, maybe you can argue maybe it makes it a little bit more difficult to throw the ball accurately as a fully inflated one, but it's much easier to maintain control of the ball.
I suppose, but I don't think it was necessarily that much more of an advantage. I mean, again, they blew out the Colts. The Colts never even stood a chance in that game.
Okay, moving on. So there's
Okay.
Deflategate, there's Spygate, the original Spygate. There's the whole Tuck rule incident, which you could say that's more on the league than it is on the Patriots. Still, there's the Tuck rule. There's things about stolen playbooks, right? The Rams had a big thing about the Patriots stealing and cheating way back before their Super Bowl. There's the fire alarms that got pulled when the Steelers were in town. And
Okay, you're being petty.
No, I'm just saying. It's the exact same excuses. They said, we had no idea. We think it was a fan. I had no idea that somebody was going to do that. They're doing the exact same thing. Bill Belichick is saying, I had no idea that this dude was going to film the sideline and film the field. And so, yes, maybe that one I'm a little bit more inclined to believe that that was just a fan. But come on now. Like, all of these weird incidences, there's rumors of headset manipulation and headset tampering. All of those things added up. We know that they're cheaters. They've been caught cheating before. I think you take that as a culmination of things and you say, in aggregate, even though this is a small, minor offense, it's like if you've been caught robbing a bunch of stores a bunch of times, right? You've robbed 5 stores already. You get caught with a gun. Yeah, you deserve to get the book thrown at you. And so going back to your question, could Bill Belichick possibly be banned from the Hall of Fame and be banned from the NFL? Absolutely. Would it suck? Yeah, he's the face of your NFL 100 series, right? Where he's a great historian and he's a fantastic coach and he knows what he's talking about football-wise. Absolutely. Is he one of the most accomplished coaches ever in probably all of professional sports? Absolutely. But does he deserve to get banned if this is found to be true? Absolutely.
Wow, you are pretty passionate about this one.
Absolutely, Juju. Absolutely. Like, I mean, I'm just saying, like, if you've been caught that many times, it tells me it is systemic. And finding him $500,000 the last time for Spygate obviously was not enough.
This is what 20 years of seeing your team get worked by the same franchise will do to a man. Aundre Huynh, you are the primary example. But no,
Eris is probably on my side, okay? Eris is probably on my side. I'm pissed.
You poor guys in the AFC. Here's what I'll say on this one. I completely get where you're coming from a standpoint is, yeah, even something as small as a fire alarm, it's hard to take their word for it when these issues are well documented and have happened. Because even like the smallest little conspiracy theory. So there was like a argument this past week. So the Chiefs like equipment got redirected to a whole nother city and they almost had to play with a local high school's uniforms in exchange for their actual uniforms while playing in Foxborough. So they're like, there's the Patriots again. Or you mentioned again, fire alarm got pulled. Guess those dang Patriots are out there. Sam Darnold got mono. Who sent that hooker up to his room?
Okay, that's out there for conspiracy theories. But, I mean, like legit though, there's all these strange instances and they only happen when you're playing the Patriots. Like the Chiefs luggage gets rerouted to some random city and that just happens to be the week that you're playing the Patriots. The fire alarm happens to get pulled if you're the Steelers at 3 a.m. and it just happens to be when you're playing the Patriots. Like, come on now. Like, when else has this happened? When has another team had the fire alarm pulled at their hotel when they're playing a team not the Patriots? Or when has their luggage ended up somewhere completely different when they're not playing the Patriots? And then it comes to things where it's within the Patriots' control when it actually is like the headset tampering at home, or it comes to things like recording people, stealing signs, deflating footballs. All of that together, like 100%, I think that they're guilty.
Well, you always talk about the big brother effect the Patriots have had on the league. So couldn't you argue that necessarily, maybe it's just the Patriots have been in these guys' heads for so long that anytime an inconvenience happens, it's an easy redirect to kind of excuse the poor performances they've had over the last 20 years, I would argue.
So I would argue, though, that it's not just minor inconveniences. So, yes, there's small little inconveniences, right, of like, oh, one person's luggage didn't make it through or something like that. There's small little weird things. Hey, somebody got an injury. Yeah, that's an inconvenience, right? Or, oh, there was somebody that, got tackled incorrectly and they injured their leg or they got taken out, right? They got a concussion. Those are minor inconveniences. But these are big, major inconveniences that just statistically, the amount of inconveniences that happen when you play this team, right, across different franchises, to me, that tells me that there's some shenanigans going on.
Well, I think it does tend to belittle this dynasty, which is probably one of the biggest disappointments as far as whenever something like this pops up.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that there is a contingent of NFL fans that are there readily looking for these kind of things. That way they can dismiss, because we haven't seen a franchise be good for 20 plus years. It's just unheard of. Even 10 years of success is something that doesn't happen very often. So I do think that it's easy for us to buy in when something like this does come along, especially if you're a known Patriots hater and you're just looking for the opportunity to jump on them. Now, I'm not saying this excuses something like what happened this past Sunday. I do think that this is egregious and it should be punished accordingly. But I do think that some of the other issues that we have mentioned over the years, I look back at Deflategate, and I don't even think there should have been any suspensions. I don't think it should have went to court. I think it honestly was one of the most stupid headlines of the entire decade.
But it was obvious that they cheated, though. The fact is
cheating, though, I mean, deflated football, like, are you going to tell me that one, what is it, PSI or whatever on the football was the difference between the Colts losing by 40 and losing by 30?
No, but there's rules for a reason, right? Like, there's rules, there's reasons why you cannot run red lights. And you could say, well, I just ran a red light when there is nobody around and it's 3 a.m. and it's dark out. Yes, you're still going to get pulled over, though, because if we start allowing things to slide in any professional organization, then you got to start letting things slide for everybody. So if you start letting it slide of, they just deflated the footballs. Well, why not let everybody deflate footballs? Oh, they were just filming people. Well, let's let everybody film people. Oh, you're paying players under the table. Now, that's not what, Patriots have ever been accused of, but I'm just saying, oh, you're playing players extra under the table. Okay, let everybody pay players extra under the table. Like, those are the little things where you can't let it slide, and there's rules for a reason, and they obviously broke those rules. And statistically, it's not likely that 11 out of 12 footballs are going to be underinflated when your opponents are all completely inflated. And so the Patriots are blatantly breaking rules, and there needs to be punishment when you go out of your way to break rules.
That's fair. You have to hold people accountable.
Yeah. Real quick, just to, what I don't have a problem with is, like you said, getting in your opponent's head. I have no problem with that. Like, I've heard stories of the Patriots will put thermometers at the end of the tunnel of their opponents so that they can see how cold it is, right? And you see that, oh, shoot, it's -10 right now. This sucks. I don't want to be here, right? Yeah, that's totally fine with me. Like, stuff like that. Or, even if you wanted to put up pictures of people's, wives is taking a little bit far and family members, but, that's a bit far, but it's still like gamesmanship. That's technically not cheating. Do I think that would be a little bit trashy? Yeah. Would you receive any suspensions for it? No, and I don't think that you should. But when it comes to blatantly breaking the rules, right, and knowingly breaking the rules, I think you should receive punishment.
So obviously this is going to take like months and months and months to investigate. What do you think would be a fair thing? So let's say the Patriots, for argument's sake, win a Super Bowl this year, which I know they've lost the last couple of games here, but we've seen the Patriots go on these poor stretches over the last decade. People write them off. It's a cruel, unforgiving cycle when it comes to the media. Like, oh, the Patriots lost a couple of games. Time to declare this dynasty dead. Oh, they're in the playoffs. Oh, they have a bye. Oh, they won the Super Bowl. And we're back. Cycle repeats itself. It's endless. Let's say they win a Super Bowl and they do get found guilty, not necessarily on multiple games, but in particular on this one Cincinnati game, because we know Zach Taylor, Andy Dalton, you got to get some cameras in there. You got to figure out what these guys are doing. They're two offensive geniuses right now. And I don't blame Belichick or the Patriots for being scared of this phenomenal, amazing, dynamic offense that the Bengals run out there in Cincinnati.
I mean, you're not impressed by Andy Dalton's few wins that he's gotten this year?
Oh, yeah, all one of them?
Exactly. He's just stacking them up.
Just destroying the Jets out there. I mean, the Patriots made the Jets see ghost, but the Bengals were out there showing them redheaded demons.
I mean, I will be honest. The second time that we played them, I was very scared the first half until we put Duck Hodges in. So I mean, I thought it was a good decision, right? That's a good coaching move, but I was a little bit concerned. Now, granted, my team is garbage, though.
Not as good a coaching move as putting film crews in other teams' press boxes.
Yeah, apparently not. So, getting back on track, if they're found guilty after this year, I think Bill Belichick should be out. And I honestly think Robert Kraft should have to sell the team. Do I think that they'll revoke the championship if they win it, right? No, probably not. And you and I, we've had this discussion when it comes to the Astros. that's sort of like, if you do it, it almost doesn't hold water. Everybody knows who ended up winning that game. You can't replay the Super Bowl, or you can't take the Patriots out of the playoffs and just say, hey, we're going to run it back and redo this playoffs again. Like, you just can't go back in time. And so do I think that they can void that Super Bowl? Probably not. Like, and I don't know how much good it would really do to put an asterisk next to a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take away a team from Robert Kraft and you remove Bill Belichick from the league and say, hey, he cannot be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and, you know, maybe you even cost him some draft picks, I think that will make sure that, hey, these teams, nobody in the NFL is systematically going to cheat again. And that's where I have the biggest issue, is that it's systematic, it's systemic within the Patriots organization. It's not one or two instances, right? Like, my team has cheated before. We've had our coach on the field so that he can redirect the player to get tackled, right? And said, oh, I just lost where I was going. Yeah, right, BS. When you have a 200-pound man running at you in full pads, you're going to make sure that you're not on the field. And we learned our lesson. Haven't done that anymore. But it's systemic within the Patriots organization. They obviously haven't learned a lesson. And so that's why I think punishment needs to be harsh.
You're very critical of Robert Kraft this week. You know, Robert Kraft doesn't only have you as a critic. Actually, another critic that he has right now is going to be former Patriots receiver Antonio Brown. But moving off of kind of like Spygate, here's the thing. So that story is just going to be constantly developing. Still don't really know a whole lot, but we do know one thing. Antonio Brown is certified psycho at this point. So he went on another Twitter tirade this past week, calling the NFL racist, the owners racist, again, going after Robert Kraft, going after Ben Roethlisberger, diminishing their legacies, their accomplishments. And then, of course, at the end of this tirade, asking for his reinstatement back into the league so he could work with the Patriots and the owner he just reviled over Twitter. This is just complete mental imbalance, is it not?
Honestly, I'm all for freedom of speech and everything, but I think Twitter just needs to pull his account and be like, hey, look, bro, like, this is for your best interest. We're not going to let you have a Twitter anymore. But,
are you saying Twitter should put him in timeout?
Yes, they should, for his own well-being, just to be like, look, you need a break from social media. The dude's gone completely crazy. He's blaming everybody else for all his problems, and that included with all of the incidents that he's had throughout, this whole off season. And even his last few years with the Steelers, I think he's legit gone crazy.
We've been really good these last few weeks. We've been really good. I don't think we've mentioned Antonio Brown since, episode 7 right now, so over 3 months ago. But damn it, the guy just keeps coming back. Like, if it's not a dyed mustache, if it's not that hot air balloon you're hung up on, if it's not frozen feet, there's this. He was putting out pictures out there that was comparing himself to, like, a gladiator game beat for the crowd to look out upon. It's just like, dude, just like have some sort of awareness, some self-awareness as far as how people perceive you. And people already perceive you as a little nutty, a little bit of a screwball. So maybe let's curve these actions a little bit. I don't know who is your social media advisor that's telling you this is a good idea, man, let's go for it. Especially with all the other negative headlines, Sterling. If you just go silent for literally 2 months or so, just said nothing. Because this isn't the first Antonio Brown thing we could have talked about in that time span where we weren't talking about him. But it's gotten to the point where it's just bubbled up right now that I just feel like we have to address it. He just needs to get ghosted from social media for a little bit. And I'm sure he might actually work his way back into the league. Does he deserve a spot in the league anymore? That's the big question.
I mean, I think one of the bigger questions is who's willing to take that risk that's in the league. And maybe a team like the Patriots, right, where if you can sign him, and I know that there's a few teams that have sort of done this in the NFL, right, when it comes to, these to minimize risk, right? Like Carmelo Anthony was on a sort of a restricted contract in which it's like, hey, every time you play well, right, or every time you play, we'll give you a little bit more. Now his contract is guaranteed. The Lakers did the same thing with Dwight Howard, right, is that you have to play a certain amount of games. As you play your games, right, we'll pay you out. But if you're not performing or anything goes wrong, we can cut you at whatever time and you're not guaranteed your contract. And maybe that's what a team has to do with Antonio Brown. But I just don't know if it's worth the risk to bring that, personality and that much drama into your locker room and risk, throwing off whatever chemistry that your team might have.
Yeah, because I do feel like when he signed in New England, there was a legitimate effort to keep him away from the media, to keep him from talking. And that just went out the door when the sexual assault allegations came out against him. And whether or not you believe those allegations now, it does lose a little credibility that those also seem to go away as soon as like Antonio Brown went away.
Mhm.
I do think that there is something to that is a little bit disturbing. But with that said, if you're Antonio Brown, you can't be doing stupid stuff like texting your accuser pictures of their family. Like lawyering 101, do not do that.
Mhm.
And you're just adding fuel to the fire. It's like literally, it's like literally he has a can of gasoline and he just sees a fire and he's just throwing it on there, just, you know?
I love the sound effects, Juju. Perfect representation of what Antonio Brown is doing.
I mean, the guy is just starting fires like everywhere. It's like a forest fire right now at this point. It's like legitimately like you got to keep this guy away from California because I'd just be worried about the kind of damage he would do at this rate.
No, you're exactly right. And what really worries me, and maybe his family and his friends are telling him something, but to me it seems that nobody is sitting him down and having that real conversation of like, look, dude, like if you really want to play in the league, you need to stop this and you need to knock it off. And just for your personal image, like you should not be posting a lot of the stuff that you do. You shouldn't be posting at all, right? And I just feel bad for him as a human being, as an individual right now. Like he sort of just seems a little bit lost in the world, and it doesn't seem like anybody's telling him the hard stuff that he needs to know to say like, hey, look, dude, like this is not appropriate. You need to get off Twitter. This is just digging your grave deeper.
Yeah, and I do. So he one of this like headlines that kind of like put this back in the forefront of the news is because he released a video out there where he was basically saying some stuff like, "Man, without football, I don't have an identity. Like, I feel like I'm not loved, etc." And those are very real human emotions right there. I get that. Like, if not having a sense of identity, to not having like that real like connection, like to feel as though you're validated. But at the same time, I do think that speaks to a little bit of a toxic social media culture we have in general, where it does seem that like Antonio's love or perceived love is based off his like to comment ratios on Instagram, his impressions, etc. Because it does feel like without that, he's just in a endless spiral right now.
Yeah. And I mean, adding on to that, I think this probably really is the first time in which a team has not wanted Antonio Brown ever. Like, even probably all the way going down to, the youth football teams, right? Is that, hey, when he's 5 years old, why would you not want him on your flag football team, right? Or when he's a middle schooler, why would you not want him on your middle school team? High school, college, and now, got drafted by the Steelers. I'm sure there was plenty of organizations that would have wanted him if he had not acted the way that he had, right? Like there would have been a lot of teams wanting to trade for him. But now that he's acted the way that he has, and he's just going on tirades on social media, there's no team that wants him anymore. And it probably is really the first time in his life where he's like, how come I'm not, the number one guy that everybody wants on their football team?
Yeah, and I do feel like we have to address it mostly because Antonio Brown addressed it. He was talking about the race element to this. I don't care what color, race you are. If you're doing some of the actions that Antonio has been doing, it's almost unjustifiable. Look, I mean, I don't think that there's a complete media bias because look at how much ridicule Baker Mayfield comes under weekly for his antics. And those are like a microcosm of what Antonio Brown has done to this point.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I don't think race has a single thing to do with it. Is that when you're being that much of a distraction, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter how tall you are, it doesn't matter what race you are. Like those are just things that people do not want. And we've heard it time and time again of when people are selecting, let's say, players in the NFL draft, right? Or NBA draft or whatever it is, there's off the court issues or off the field issues that scouts weigh, and that, sort of changes their decision on who they select in the draft, right? That can change you. If you have major issues, you can fall from being the number one pick in the draft, possibly all the way down to 10, and simply because of the issues that you had off of the field or off of the court. And that's what's going on with Antonio Brown. He's having these issues that are not about his performance, and nobody wants to be around it. And it doesn't matter, like you said, what his race is. if you literally just took out his name and you just said, hey, here's a player that's freezing his feet off. He's coming into practice on a hot air balloon. He's going on these crazy tirades on Twitter. He's calling, owners racist names. Do you want him on your team? It wouldn't matter what his name is, right? I guarantee everybody would say, heck no, I don't want him.
Yeah, and that would just let's say you were drafting this player, you would have already made the conscious decision that guy would go undrafted. Since Antonio Brown has been in the league and has built up a Hall of Fame resume to this point, people will give his talent the benefit of the doubt over his character. And it's gotten to the point where your talent has to outweigh your problems off the field. And right now you measure the problems off the field, and it's exponentially higher than his talent, because we haven't seen Antonio Brown really play but a game in over a year and a half now. And he missed the final game of his Steelers career as well. So when you compile all these, and with his lack of playing, we all only really have Antonio Brown highlight reels from a couple of years ago now to go off of. It's disappointing. I mean, this guy caught 15 touchdowns his final season with Pittsburgh, and he caught a touchdown in his lone game this season. So the talent is there, but it's hard. Let's say I'm coming from a fan perspective, so it's a little more complicated for you being a Steelers fan here, but I don't want him if I'm for my Niners, for example. In the same way, I'm kind of hesitant to even get Odell Beckham Jr. right now. But Odell has never done anything quite at the level of AB right now.
No, absolutely not. And that's the thing is Odell on a good team, which I had thought that the Browns were going to be a lot better this year. I was excited to see what Odell can do. It's been disappointing, and I don't think that that's any surprise to anybody by saying that. But I think Odell on a good team, right, he's got a lot of other options, so he's not being double-teamed all the time and being shut down, and his quarterback can actually throw and can throw accurately. I think Odell's worth the headaches that he comes with. Is he a little bit of a diva? Yeah. Does the media sort of focus in on him and everything he does wrong sort of gets magnified? Yeah, but he's not freezing his feet off. He's not, flipping Gatorade coolers and dumping it on people just because he's not catching pass. He's has his issues, but it's nowhere near as bad as Antonio Brown. And Antonio Brown, it's just not worth the headache.
Yeah, it's been about 4 years since he kicked the kicking net, so that's kind of an old issue at this point. The only thing to worry about him right now in a Cleveland Browns uniform is his quarterback running his mouth about the training staff.
I know, throwing them under the bus.
It's not the first time we've seen that come up, a player throwing their training staff on there. I know we weren't really planning on this topic, but quick thoughts on that one?
I mean, I just think it's sort of crappy. And I think Baker Mayfield, a lot of it is just shifting blame to other places just for how bad that they've been. And granted, it sucks Odell Beckham got hurt and he's going through some ankle injuries or whatever it is that he's going through. Is it a hernia? Yeah,
it's a sports hernia that apparently went well, it was diagnosed, but I think they told him he could play through it. This goes back apparently all the way back to training camp. So if you were looking for a reason why Odell has been underperforming, I guess you can defer it to that.
Yeah.
It does kind of look bad because I know in particular in the fantasy football community, a lot of people have said Odell's missed a lot of playing time over the last few years. He's a little injury prone. So maybe he tried to push through the season knowing that label was getting attached to him. It's always difficult because in the NFL, players play through injuries. It's just a common practice. There's a lot more on the line than an NBA game. And it's definitely why fans appreciate you more. If you play through injury, you earn a lot more respect in fans' eyes.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's this weird conflicting interest when it comes to training staff, right? And these physicians is if it's a total, independent physician, that's the doctor, an independent doctor, they're going to do what's best for the individual, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what they get paid to do. And they're, the health provider. But when it comes to the training staff, their job is one, to keep the players healthy, but also to allow them to play and not overstep their bounds so that their team can be successful. And so training staffs have this weird balance of, hey, we have to tell you as much information as possible and tell you the truth. But at the same time, we have to encourage you if we think that there is a possibility that you can play through these things. We have to tell you that it is a possibility and allow you to get out on the field if it is a possibility. And so it sucks to be a training staff. And granted, are there some crappy training staffs. I'm sure that there are, but I honestly think that the Browns are just a mess this year, and people are just looking to blame anybody and everybody, especially the players, right? And I'm not saying that Baker Mayfield has been absolutely thrown around blame to everybody else, but I think it was sort of an easy thing to say, like, oh, it's the training staff's fault.
Yeah, I mean, Baker Mayfield, he has not a great filter, and that's been one of his biggest things. I guess real quick to close on the Antonio Brown subject. Antonio, I'll say this, man. I hope you get some help. Just stay off the gram. Stay off Twitter for a little bit, man. That's like literally, I beg of you. It's legitimately in your only best interest to do such at this point. You're a great player. I do want to see you on the field. I do want to see you make a comeback, man. But this got to stop. If you, I know you're old, and this kind of seems like a weird kind of like piece of advice here, man. But like if you were a family member or someone, a close personal friend, I would pull you aside here, man, and tell you, hey, these people on social media, they're not your friends, man. They're just people that are they're fans. They appreciate your talent, but these people do not validate you. I mean, for all the issues that we said about Bill Belichick early on, he had a great quote about social media. He doesn't care about 2,000 people that don't know him liking his status. He cares about like the players in the locker room, those 53 other guys, his actual family. Those are the people that matter. Surround yourself more with those people, and maybe you can get back into social media, but please find a healthy balance. Get some help, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know if you have any more you want to add to that.
No, I'm just gonna say the exact same stuff. Like, find that healthy balance, and just do what's best for you personally, and maybe it's take a step back from social media. And it's a shame, he was such an electric player, especially as a Steelers fan back when he was on the team. Like, there's no denying that he was a fantastic talent, and I still think that he is. I even drafted him in fantasy this year. Screwed me over, but like, there's no denying the amount of talent that he has, and I would love to see him back on the field. But even that is not the most important thing. The most important thing is, have your mental health and, take care of yourself. Be around people that love you, and hopefully you don't have to feel validation from fans and sports teams.
You drafted Lev Bell on that team too. You really bought into this like former Steeler bandwagon and scored 170 points and out.
Yeah, damn. So we just got to tell everybody what happened. We're in a PPR league, Juju and I. I make it to the playoffs. I put up 175. I put up 175 and still lost in the first round of the playoffs. That was like the second most or the third most amount of points that week, and I just happened to play the one dude that broke 200.
Okay, but in my defense, I was the third highest scoring team in that league, outscored you. Beat That's you true. During the season, and I didn't even make it to the playoffs because so we have two divisions. We have our New Mexico division, so our home state, everything like that, and then a division for everyone else. Right now, the New Mexico division is our Eastern Conference right now. There is no debate about it. I play in the West. I had to go against LeBrons and ADs and Kawhis all year. Well, you got to beat up on the Pistons.
So there's no denying that. I'm not gonna deny that. It was definitely a kick in the balls though to put up 175 and still lose. Like I looked at that, I saw the green and I was like 175. I was like, there's no way I don't beat anybody with that score. Mm-hmm. And I look, and sure enough, I lost.
You saw the green. You're not getting any green this year. That's a shame, man.
Yeah.
Speaking of getting green though, when you become a parent, when you finally enter that final like door of adulthood there and have a little human, mm-hmm. Which sport are you going to recommend that this little human plays?
So, of course, I'm a wrestler. I'm going to make my little human be a wrestler. But I think I know where we're going, and wrestlers don't make a whole lot of money. So, unfortunately, my kids are going to be short. I said I'm 5'6", maybe 5'7" on a good day. Hey, my kids are probably born to be wrestlers, and that's about all they can do professionally.
I've seen your girlfriend. She's not much taller, so the genetics aren't going to assist them here. I'm going to try and date a tall woman. That is my goal. I'm just going to find the most Amazon-looking woman out there and make her my wife.
There's some 6'5" babes out there,
Exactly. Someone to really look up to for the kids.
Exactly. Literally look up to her.
Anyway, so you mentioned this. So the grander point is because if I'm recommending a sport to my children, my future offspring, it's going to be baseball because God dang, do these guys get that green. You don't want to talk about securing the bag? Become a star baseball player because, my God. So there was over $800 million pulled down by Scott Boras alone between his three clients, Steven Strasburg, who earned a $245 guaranteed million in his contract with the Nationals to resign, Anthony Rendon, another $245 million contract that he signed to play for your Los Angeles Angels.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, the big one, Garrett Cole, $324 million to play for the evil empire out there, the New York Yankees. Yankees spending is back. When you have a GM that's named Brian Cashman, you hand out that cash, man.
I love it. I love the dad jokes, Juju. You got to just keep this rolling the whole time. But legit, these guys are getting paid lots and lots of money. And I think it's a little bit interesting, though, is that we saw it's not always the highest paid team, though, that gets you these wins. But these guys are definitely worth what they're getting paid. They've got a good agent that knows how to negotiate this stuff. And so I'm excited for him. I'm happy for him. That's a lot of money. I wish I had that level of cash.
You want to talk about like cash earned? So man, Scott Boras, he's one of the highest grossing agents in the game today. So I was looking at some Scott Boras numbers right here. So in other sports leagues, there's usually like a cap on how much you can really make in commissions. For the NBA, the NFL, it's usually about like 3% of a player's contract. The MLB, there's no cap. It's a no salary cap league. So the opportunity to earn is endless. And in 2017 alone, Scott Boras made $108.3 million in just commissions off of $1.9 billion in player contracts. That's just 76 players too, by the way. So Scott Boras, this guy just pulls it down. If you are a star baseball player, you know where you're going. You know where you're signing. This guy is going to, in fact, Scott Boras, he approaches you if he sees that talent. He was actually Kyler Murray's agent before Kyler Murray decided to divert to football. So maybe, I don't know. Nah, I won't say that. I think Kyler Murray actually made the right call. So the thing about it is, as much money as you can earn as a baseball player, you got to remember these guys are the stars of the league.
Mm-hmm.
These aren't some like low-level names. You have to really earn. So you have to work your way up through the minors. It's not like the NFL where you're just playing in the league from the time you're drafted. There's a lot of players that are drafted in the first round of the MLB draft. They don't even make it to the pros. So it's not like a direct route. You have to be a phenomenal prospect. And certainly each one of these players in their own right is. I mean, Garrett Cole, no doubt about it, was the best player in baseball last year, or best pitcher in baseball. And $324 million. So you had to expect the Yankees were eventually going to make a big move. They haven't really spent money in quite a while. Since they traded for the Giancarlo Stanton contract, which is a little over like 20-some million a year, the Yankees have been pretty quiet as far as these big profile moves. And man, nine figures for just one player. You got to like, gosh, if you're some of the other leagues and you're looking at the fact you have a salary cap, you have to hate that compared to baseball.
Oh, I know. And I think you're exactly right. When it came to the Kyler Murray, I think he made the right choice just because it's harder to get to that level of like pay in baseball, just because you're so much more replaceable. There's so much more competition, and you got to be the elite of the elite. But I know Kyler Murray's got to be looking at that and saying like, oh man, maybe I was good enough to try to make that type of money. I don't know how good Kyler Murray was at baseball. I don't know if he ever would have been at that level, but
drafted top 10, so I mean, pretty good. But again, drafted top 10 doesn't mean a ton in baseball. Like the elite tier drafted top 10 players of the NBA, even after you get past like 3 or 5, is kind of like a huge talent drop off. In the MLB, it's really just like after those first couple players, there's a drop off. And that's when you're really relying on your advanced scouting department to be able to pull out some gems from the draft for you. try and build a cohesive unit, which also is why MLB free agency isn't an exact science. Because we mentioned in past shows, some of the best teams are really not built through free agency. They're built through the draft. They're built through the farm. Luckily, if you're Yankees, so like I mentioned, the Yankees have been spending money in a while. They have been building through the farm. They have a ton of great farm players when you consider like Aaron Judge is out there. You have Gary Sanchez, a ton more players there. Even some international signings like, even some international signings they made over the last couple of years have really added to this roster. So like a Garrett Cole is supposed to be that piece that puts you over the top, especially since the Yankees rotation has been one of their weaker spots going for the last couple of years. Their bullpen has been amazing, short of a now questionable Jose Altuve home run. This team could have been in the World Series last year. It's going to be, I'm intrigued to see how some of these contracts pan out because, again, baseball long-term contracts don't have a great track record. It's 7 years, 8 years. For Garrett Cole, a player that relies so heavily on his fastball, if he loses fastball, this contract could get ugly after like year 5. So you're taking a huge gamble with that, especially, but at least if you're Garrett Cole, you do have a contract opt-out after year 5. So let's say you are living up to your contract, you can opt out of this and get potentially more.
Yeah, which is just insane to think about, right? Is that if he continues to perform at the level he's been performing at for a sustained amount of time, right, that 5-year mark, he can say, hey, let's renegotiate my contract. And like you said, to get even more than that, it's just astronomical. Like the amount that baseball players get paid is insane. I am interested to see if that is the piece that puts the Yankees over the top. I think it's a good thing. Like when the Lakers are good, it's good for basketball. When the Yankees are good, I think it's good for baseball, right? It just gets more eyes on the sport, and hearing big numbers like that, right? It definitely gets people interested.
Now, you're an LA fan, but you actually do kind of divert a little bit. You're not a Dodgers fan per se. You more so root for the Angels.
Mm-hmm.
So with that said, Anthony Rendon signing, you figure he's probably going to slot behind Mike Trout in the lineup, provide a little bit more protection for him on a given day. So like you can't pitch around Mike Trout necessarily as well because you have a big power hitter in Rendon right behind him. Do you think the Angels legitimately can compete this year? You got to figure in that division alone, they have to face the Astros, who just won 100-plus games and are a pretty young team. The A's are one of the best analytic teams in baseball over the last 2 decades. I mean, we've all seen Moneyball. And even, you got to watch out for up-and-comers like the Rangers and everything like that. So the Angels kind of have a tough path to the playoffs, particularly to a championship. So it is a little questionable them going out there and spending more money. They're not afraid to spend money, which I guess is at least good.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't know if the Angels will ever make the playoffs, right? Like I don't think that this one move is going to be that great for them, but I still enjoy it. I still watch them. It's kind of like being a Clippers fan, right? Is now the Clippers actually legit do have good shots at a title. I don't think that the Angels as an organization, I mean, I think they've got Mike Trout. He's going to be happy there. Rendon's going to be happy, but I just don't see him making the playoffs.
Yeah, it does limit you substantially because I think too, even with that said, they have Albert Pujols, I want to say, on the books for another couple years.
Yeah.
They have Mike Trout. So I mean, granted, if Mike Trout plays at this level that he has been, you don't mind paying him for another 10 years on his contract. Shohei Ohtani, his contract's probably going to be coming up here in a couple of years. I don't remember the exact length of the deal he signed, but eventually you're going to want to extend him because he brings you such a big international market as one of the looking like one of the best all-time Japanese baseball players. I do give the Angels credit. I just don't know if it's really panned out for them because they have been an organization that has not been afraid to spend money, and yet they should be based off like their track record. But it makes sense that they're opening a new stadium here soon. They have to sell some tickets. Actually, so fun fact, Garrett Cole, his contract alone and guaranteed money is actually more than the entire land development for the Angels' new ballpark.
That's so insane to me.
That exact number, let me pull it up. I actually have it saved on my phone here. So Garrett Cole, obviously $324 million. is actually, I misspoke. It's $1 million less than the Angels' new stadium and the 133 acres of ripe, undeveloped land that surrounds it. And remember, this is in LA, so this is not cheap real estate.
Yeah, that's just insane, right? Like houses alone in LA for a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house can run you $1 million. So imagine 300 of those. It's just such an insane amount of money. And yeah, I think going back to the Angels thing is they're spending a whole lot of money, but like we sort of talked about throughout the rest of the postseason for baseball, it's not necessarily all about throwing the money around. That's not necessarily what gets you the wins. It's about having, that good analysis, that quality of, hey, who are the players that I can get that are much cheaper, right? But just as good or basically close to just as good. And how can I make my team the best team around? And the Angels are fun to watch because they do have some of those big names, right? And they're not afraid to spend money. But I think that is the thing as an organization that they're just not good at is putting together a winning team. And I don't know if they'll ever be good at it, but I still enjoy going. I like going to the games. It's fun to watch down there in LA. But these guys, I'm happy for the players. When you could get hundreds of millions of dollars, you take it.
Well, as to add to that, so we mentioned this before. So Kirk Cousins essentially earned more money in a given season than the entire Tampa Bay Rays roster. Eventually, we're gonna get at the point where one of these players is gonna make legitimately probably $1 billion for a contract. We still have organizations in baseball that aren't worth $1 billion in the Tampa Bay Rays themselves. So we're kind of trending in that direction eventually. It's going to be – so how many years off do you think we are from the first $1 billion contract?
In baseball?
At this rate. I mean, we're already in the $300 million range. It was at $200 million just 10 years ago.
I would still say – I'd say about 2 decades.
About 2 decades. In NFL terms, so we're kind of seeing the first players start to get over $200 million contracts as well.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, congratulations for them. Got to secure that bag. All right. So our next kind of subject we're moving into, because we've been talking a lot about the fighting news over the last few weeks, I do want to follow up on the story of Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz. There is a ton of disappointed Mexican boxing fans out there because the Brit got the win this past week. He won by a unanimous decision following his knockout defeat to Andy Ruiz the year prior. I wanted to bring this up mostly because I've heard a lot of interesting debate over Andy Ruiz, like how he approached this fight, because he came in 20 pounds more overweight than he already was. Mm-hmm. And it just seems like the guy fell back in his laurels and has now become a bit of a meme, because back when he first defeated Joshua, he was the scrappy guy that happened to get that upset win, big time, every hero of the people, everything like that. But now that he's lost this one, it does seem like that legacy is now a joke.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing so this is part of the thing that makes heavyweights so exciting, right? Is the fact that even a chubby fat guy can have enough power to catch, a human specimen like an Anthony Joshua, right? And be able to knock him out. And that's what makes heavyweight boxing so fun and so exciting. But that's the thing is Anthony Joshua, I think, was always the better boxer and just the better athlete than Andy Ruiz. And the fact that Andy Ruiz sort of didn't take it serious is a little bit disappointing, especially I don't think that Andy Ruiz, had he not knocked out Anthony Joshua, I don't think that he would have won that first fight in the first place. So there was no reason for him to just be like, hey, I can relax and take it easy. Unless, he just doesn't have that passion anymore. He accomplished what he wanted to, and maybe he's just like, yeah, I could take my time. But it was a little bit disappointing to hear that. I wish he would have been in better fight shape. I wish he would have taken it just as serious, and maybe we would have seen another Andy Ruiz win. But you got to give it to Joshua. He's a great boxer. He's a great fighter.
I mean, he's a great fighter, but at the same time, the fact that he won by decision was a little bit disappointing. I really wanted to see him go into that fight. Well, I should say this. If he was going to win in that fight, I would have preferred it to be by knockout decision, because he's going to be facing the winner of Wilder versus Fury, and we know the kind of punching power that those two guys have. So it's hard to look at him like a competitive fight, considering that he couldn't even put away Andy Ruiz, who wasn't taking the fight seriously, who he had knocked down plenty of times throughout both their contests, and that he failed to do that because he's going to need that kind of knockout power to put away the monster that is Deontay Wilder.
Yeah, and I wonder if it was because he was respecting Andy Ruiz's power maybe a little bit too much going into the second fight. So to be honest, I did not actually watch it in person and live stream. I saw some of the highlights, but I wonder if he respected his power. Like a lot of times after you've been knocked out by an individual, it's like, hey, I don't want that to happen again. So I'm not gonna be as aggressive as I normally am, and I'm fine with winning a decision. And I do wonder if that's what happened. But when you're fighting guys like a Deontay Wilder and a Tyson Fury, there's no playing it safe with those two. Like you better bring your A game and you better box to the fullest of your ability, because those dudes will catch you and they will knock you out, even if you are being overly cautious.
Well, I know one of the big reports as far as Joshua's like training routine going into the fight is that he did lose a lot of like muscle weight, so he could kind of like capitalize more on the speed advantage. I don't know if that maybe took away from his power and why he wasn't able to just put away Ruiz. Ruiz is out there talking about a trilogy fight between the two. Stop, man. I think it's over for you. Like, you had an opportunity to legitimately be more than just a like tired, rundown, was it cliche of the guy that got the upset win and faded off into irrelevance. Kind of like, even for example, so this one's near and dear to our hearts, Holly Holm, she beat Ronda Rousey and then has proceeded to go on a 5-match losing streak right now.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how many fights that she's lost in a row. I think you're close. It's right around that number. But yeah, that's the thing is nobody wants to see Holly Holm saying, "Oh, I'm going to run it back with whoever." Like, it's kind of like, maybe just stop.
This was your opportunity to capitalize. Like, let's say you managed to actually get the decision win over Joshua. You could have secured that legacy. You could have been in this fight position against Wilder or Fury, and people would actually took you seriously as a fighter. People, like, when they saw the images of Ruiz beating Joshua, were just like, man, can you believe that this fat piece of shit actually managed to pull off a win against a guy that looks like Joshua? Like, that guy just straight up looked like he was cut out of marble. Now it's like you just go back to irrelevance right now, because short of like a novelty win here and there, kind of like a butterbean type thing, I don't think too many people are going to give you that same kind of credit or accolade. They're just going to say you got lucky.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, that's the thing is, I think maybe he did just get lucky, right? Like, he's got power. And so I guess maybe luck is not necessarily the exact right word. Like, if you've got the power, you can knock out anybody for sure. But I think you're right. That's what a lot of people are going to take it as is, hey, that was just a lucky punch, right? That you were able to land on a really good fighter and you were able to catch him. Good job to you. But then you sort of fade into obscurity.
Especially with like the reports that Joshua came into the fight already compromised from getting knocked out in his camp. So like people are just going to look at that even further and just say like you were coming against like a lion with a hurt paw, Yep.
Yeah, and still couldn't compete to the best of your ability.
All right. Well, I just want to touch on that briefly, but not the only fight news we have this week. So we actually got some big time fights coming up in the UFC. Amazing card, honestly. So Holloway, we have the big Ngannou fight, Usman fight versus Covington. Dre, you want to take us off on what will be UFC 245?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess we could start from the bottom, sort of moving up. But you got Amanda Nunes fighting Jermaine Duraname. So I think that's still going to be an exciting fight. Jermaine was sort of the inaugural champion when they created a weight class for Cyborg, right? And then she vacated the belt. She felt like she didn't want to fight Cyborg. But honestly, Amanda Nunes might be scarier than Cyborg. Like, she made Cyborg looked like a little kid. She knocked her out and, made it look easy. And so I don't understand why Duraname takes this fight but wouldn't take the Cyborg fight, especially after seeing what she just did to Cyborg. I find it a little bit hard, though, to vote against Amanda Nunes right now. So in my opinion, I think Nunes is going to win this fight. I think she's the more well-rounded fighter when it comes to both on feet and on the ground. Jermaine is a very good, accomplished striker, but Nunes right now is just on a roll. And sort of like you were saying with Khabib, right, the other week, is that until you see somebody stop what's going on right now, it's hard to pick against that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, I'd probably go with Nunes myself. I think the more interesting debate when it comes to Nunes is kind of like right now her role in the UFC, because despite being champion, despite being the most dominant woman fighter in the sport, probably all time, you just feel like she doesn't really have that buzz. So is it just like, is being dominant enough for Amanda Nunes' legacy?
I mean, it's difficult to say, right? Like, I think she's done the best she can for her legacy. Part of the issue is it's also hard to market people that don't speak English well. And then she doesn't have like a big social media following. Her sort of mannerisms are a little bit strange when it comes to Westerners, right? And by Westerners, I mean like the major markets, the United States, right? Like the Londons and those big markets for the UFC. And that's the thing, is it's just very hard to market her how she probably deserves to be marketed, right? Like, she's definitely more accomplished, in my opinion, than even like the Conor McGregors and some of those guys that are champions, right? And some of the male fighters, but it's just hard to market a lot of times, even just the foreigners that don't speak English, right? Like Khabib, he also maybe sometimes doesn't get the respect and the recognition that he deserves. And a lot of it is just like the personality is hard to put out there. And that's why you get some of your guys that maybe are less accomplished, but people hold them in higher regard just because they're much more marketable. You know their personality, they're fun to see on TV outside of just their fighting. And unfortunately for Amanda Nunes, she doesn't have that charisma.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it brings up kind of an interesting debate for this like decade as a whole too, and we're gonna get into it. And like, who like really carried the women's division for this decade? Was it Rousey or was it Nunes' brief run here the last 5 years? Because despite again the dominance, it's just like I feel like she just flies under the radar. She's not, as Dana White would put it, a needle mover.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and that's why there's been arguments of, is she the best pound for pound fighter in the world? And I could definitely see the argument for it. Like, she's ran through the entire division. She's finished, I think, I can't remember how many of her last fights, but she's doing a fantastic job. A better resume than most of the male fighters. But the fact is not as many people are going to tune in to watch an Amanda Nunes headline fight. And you're exactly right. Whereas Ronda Rousey, she's the reason why women's MMA sort of is where it is. And you could say that the game passed her up, absolutely, right? Like, you can say that she maybe never really was as good of a fighter as everybody seemed to have thought that she was, right? And maybe that as just women's fighting was underdeveloped at the time. But Ronda Rousey was the reason why we have women in the UFC. And without we don't have her.
Yeah, and that's why I would say I appreciate Ronda Rousey, because I do think that it also puts up like a solid legacy to say that we know that there's a track record for women fighters selling. So it's not like you can just play off Amanda Nunes' lack thereof of success as to just male-dominant sports. People won't tune in and watch women. No, people will tune in and watch women. They just want to see marketable fighters at the end of the day more than anything. It's not a sex thing. It's not a race thing. It's nothing. It's just a matter of, can you put that name at the top of the card and will it sell pay-per-view buys?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I think that's the thing, is Amanda Nunes is not necessarily a needle mover, but if you truly are a fight fan and you like seeing good technique, especially women's technique, right, it's come a long way. If you enjoy watching that, Amanda Nunes, you should definitely watch this fight. Like, she's a legit fighter. She's extremely good, regardless of male, female. But that's the thing, she's just not the needle mover that other people are.
Okay, next fight.
Yeah, Max Holloway and Alexander Volkanovski. So Volkanovski is actually Australian, so he's from Australia, not a Russian, though he probably is of Russian descent or some type of Eastern European.
Threw me off.
I know. So I was like, Juju, no, he's not a Russian. He's actually an Australian. It's actually thrown me off before, too. I'm also extremely excited about this fight. I think Holloway slightly has an edge. He's just got the height advantage. He's been in a whole lot of battles. But something that's a little bit interesting when we're talking about Alexander Volkanovski, that dude is a finishing machine. And so right now, I think only about 30% of his fights does he ever go to decision. And so most of his fights, he's either knocking you out or he's submitting you. And out of his 20 wins, he's got 11 KOs and TKOs, and only one of them has come in the third round. Everything else has been in the first or second round. So he's definitely a finisher. He's exciting to watch. He's got some power. He's also got a little bit of submissions, right? He's got triangle chokes and rear naked chokes, guillotines, all that stuff. So he's also only ever lost one fight, and that unfortunately was a TKO, right? A head kick. But if Max Holloway cannot capitalize on that, I think it's going to be a really good fight. And so if it goes to decision, I think it maybe leans a little bit more towards Max Holloway. Holloway, like I said, also has sort of the height and the reach advantage. So on feet, he's maybe a little bit favored. But I could definitely see this possibly being one of those upsets.
Okay. Well, let's see here. And then the main event here, Usman versus Covington. So obviously the main draw to this is obviously Covington has built up this image as a somewhat supervillain just based off, the tough political climate we live in. Obviously he's running out there with the MAGA hats. He's hanging out with the Trump family. And obviously it causes a little bit of controversy for the UFC and everything, which it's weird how the UFC seems to be more like a right-leaning sport when you consider, obviously, Dana White's relationship with the Trump family as well. This fight here with Usman and Covington, there's a lot of implications for future fights. I know Masvidal wants a piece of Covington. What do you think of this one? I mean, we're talking about two 15-1 fighters and two masters of their craft.
Yeah, sorry. I think you're exactly right. It's almost two almost identical fighters, right? Like you said, they're both 15-1, and like they're both going to be going at it. I think this is going to be one of like the most exciting fights. The other thing that they're super identical, both of them wrestled in college, so they're both fantastic wrestlers. I really think that I've got to go with Usman though on this one, even though he's maybe not as out there, and a lot of people I think will take Covington. Usman's power, I think, translates a little bit more. So if you're looking at their records, they're both 15-1. There's 8 decisions for Kamaru Usman. He's got 7 finishes, one of which has been a submission, but 6 of which have been a knockout or a TKO. And whereas if you're looking at Colby Covington, he's also 15-1. Like you said, he's got 8 decisions, so that means he's got 7 finishes. However, 5 of which have been a submission, and all his submissions are like a rear naked choke. And in my opinion, like there's nothing wrong with rear naked chokes. They're extremely, good moves, and like that's what you should use. Or sorry, they're rear naked chokes or arm triangle chokes. But those to me are like the most rudimentary sort of submissions that you can get, right? Like it's not hard to jump on somebody's back and choke them out, especially if you're a good wrestler, you're good at takedowns. You take them down, they're sort of turning to get up off the mat. They're sort of turning their back towards you and sort of trying to push up onto their feet. You can easily get a rear naked choke from there. And so it's not like Colby Covington is this great submission artist, even though 33% of his wins have come by submission. It's not like he's doing the arm bars and the ankle locks and stuff that you would see from your really experienced jiu-jitsu practitioners. And so with that being said, I think that Kamaru Usman's style and like what's going to really translate well is if their wrestling is almost identical, right? Like I said, they're both college wrestlers. Their fighting is, very similar. All things being equal, the one thing that I think Usman has that Covington doesn't is that knockout power. And the fact that he's got 6 KOs or TKOs, so that's 40% of his wins are coming from knockouts and TKOs. I think that's what translates more than, the takedowns, especially when it comes to they're both really good wrestlers. They're both pretty decent strikers. The power is what's going to translate a little bit more.
Okay. Well, I mean, it's all great insight into both kind of like these guys' styles and what they do to succeed. I guess in terms of picks, just to be contrarian with you, I'm going to go with Covington. I do kind of want to see where this like act kind of carries him because with all of Colby's antics, I do think he's one of the more interesting characters or performers that the UFC has pumped out here in recent years. I don't know what Colby's actual political beliefs are. I don't know if you can legitimately say he is in fact right-leaning or he's just doing it as just an act. But I will say that at the bare minimum, what a thing to capitalize on in terms of like getting your brand out there. for better or for worse, like people just tune in this fight because they want to see him get his ass kicked. And I know a majority of what's going to sell this card is going to be that audience right there. It's not even going to be Colby fans. It's going to be Colby haters mostly.
Yeah, and so what's really interesting, so we go back, to the Amanda Nunes discussion that we had, is that Colby Covington, for a long time, Dana White did not think that he was marketable. And, before his sort of meteoric rise, Colby Covington was on the chopping block for the UFC. They almost got rid of him, and Colby will say that himself. And that's why he's sort of taken on the persona that he has, is a lot of it is like, hey, to make sure that I don't get cut and to make sure that the UFC needs me, I'm going to start increasing my sort of antics and the way that I act and getting really out there with my personality. And this is the one sport that maybe Antonio Brown should do, right? maybe this would be the perfect sport for Antonio Brown, is to get him into MMA fighting, because that's what sells, is being crazy, having these crazy antics. And I think Colby Covington realized that, is that if I don't act this way and I don't start doing something with my personality just to get viewers, whether they love me or they hate me, it doesn't matter. That's still a pay-per-view buy, right? At the end of the day, they still clicked on the link. At the end of the day, they still bought, they bought the pay-per-view. At the end of the day, they still wrote a comment on Facebook. Hate me or love me, right? You're going to tune in to watch me fight, right? You're going to either want to see me get knocked out or you're going to want to see me win. And, that's the thing, is that Amanda Nunes doesn't have, is she doesn't have that personality, sort of like what we were going back to. And Colby, he sort of just had to develop this to become the way that he has. And I think it adds to the entertainment value.
For the record, I don't think that AB needs a sport where he runs the risk of a head kick.
I mean, you definitely do have to be a different type of human being, right, to want to hop in a cage, get locked in there, and to start hitting people or run the risk of getting hit. But this might be Antonio Brown's only option. I would pick fight. Like, and imagine that good of an athlete, right? Like, a lot of your UFC and MMA fighters, they grow up as sort of like wrestlers, or they maybe weren't at the level of a professional athlete to go into basketball or to your football, right? If you're a pro football player, you're a pro basketball player, a pro baseball player, you're not going to be in the UFC. But imagine if you were, had the ability of a pro athlete, of an Antonio Brown, where you're one of the quickest guys, on a football field. Imagine how exciting some of his fights could be. I'm all about it. Antonio Brown, you need to get into fighting. Leave Twitter alone. Actually, no, keep the Twitter up, right? People will love to watch you hop in a fight, and just throw on some gloves. Let's see you get out there.
I mean, we have seen former football players transition to the UFC before. Greg Hardy is a notable name, not to give him too much praise because he is kind of a shitty human, but he did have success with the sport. Didn't he have some sort of weird, they had to stop his match because he, what was he doing, an inhaler during his fight?
Yeah, which technically is a steroid, right? Like, it's a inhaled steroid, and so they had I think they ruled it a no contest eventually, right? Like,
yeah.
You can't take steroids in the middle, even if it is for asthma, unfortunately, right? Like, it's just a part of the competition.
Okay, so just run down the card one more time here. So you are going with Usman. I'm going with Covington. I'm going to go with Holloway. Are you going to also go that route, or are you going to go with Volkanovski?
So I do think that there is the upset potential, but I think I'm going to still stick with Holloway.
I mean, the guy's 20-1. It's not like a huge upset if he does pull it off.
Yeah, it's definitely not, right? Like I said, he's a fantastic fighter. He's got a lot of finishes in the first or second, but I still got to go with my boy Max Holloway. That dude is just a gangster.
All right, then we have Nunes, Rodamy. I mean, like you said, come on. It's hard to bet against Nunes right now until we see someone stop her, or we do see like a next up-and-comer in that division. It just looks like she's going to be undefeated, or not undefeated, but continue this winning streak for quite a while longer. We do have on the undercard just some quick fights. Jose Aldo, Marlon Moraes. Quick winner on that one.
Oh, man. Jose Aldo, he's sort of been going downhill, right? And it sucks. He was another one of those champions, right, that I think was underappreciated. He was so good for so long, and some people said, oh, he doesn't always have the most exciting style. His leg kicks were freaking deadly. This dude, I want to say that he almost went pro in soccer in Brazil, which if you can go pro in soccer in Brazil, Jose Aldo, you should have done that, right? You would have made so much more money. I think he was just a step below. That's why his kicks are so deadly, so powerful. I do think Aldo's a little bit on the decline though. So I don't know if he necessarily wins that fight, but he is by far one of my favorite fighters to watch, especially as I was growing up.
I'll go ahead and give the old guy the win here. I mean, he's a named talent on the undercard with such a good card,
Mm-hmm.
Might as well give him the fight here. And then just Peter Yan versus Uriah Faber.
Oh, Uriah Faber. Man, this is another. So Uriah Faber and Jose Aldo, if you guys didn't watch WEC, right, that was before like the UFC bought them out, right, and sort of merged the UFC and WEC together. That was the lighter weights. So you had your 125s, 35s, and 45s. Pretty much everybody below lightweight was in the WEC, and then the UFC bought them out. Uriah Faber and Jose Aldo fought before for the belt, and Jose Aldo destroyed Uriah Faber's legs. There's videos of Uriah Faber the next day on crutches with ice all over his legs, and they were black and blue literally everywhere. It was the most disgusting but awesome thing. Uriah Faber, he's had a little bit of success coming back. I wish he would have stayed retired, right? The California kid. That's the thing that sucks with some of these guys is because they don't make the money, right? Like the hundreds of millions of dollars that the baseball players make, they have to come back almost just because it's not enough money to live off of. I do think Uriah Faber is a little bit past his prime, though, so I'm also going to pick against him. Sorry, old guys.
I mean, Peter Yan is a little bit of an up-and-comer right now. 31 record himself. All right, well, that does it for UFC 245. So before we jump into the NFL, like Week 15 update, let's go ahead and just mention briefly the college football bowl selection committee's final CFB playoff. So that involved with starting off with our 4 seed, the Oklahoma Sooners. So they are back in the tournament with Jalen Hurts as their quarterback. So he made it as opposed to Alabama not making it. Kind of an interesting duality right there.
Mm-hmm.
At the 3 seed, we have the defending and undefeated champions, Clemson Tigers. So not too often that you'll see an undefeated reigning champion come in as just the 3 seed, but it's because of the dominance of the other 2 teams above them. So you have Ohio State led by Chase Young, Justin Fields, Ryan Day, just a really well-run team. And I would argue probably my number 1 team. I understand the reasoning behind LSU jumping up, but just the level of dominance Ohio State has had throughout the season, it was surprising for me to see them get jumped like they did. And that brings us, of course, to LSU at 1. So what do you think of the CFB playoffs? Did they get it right? Do you think that there's going to be any upsets this year? Can Clemson return as champions? And, well, let's see here. If we do get that Ohio State LSU game, do you have a winner there?
Yeah, so I think Ohio State is the better team. Sort of like you were saying, to me, Ohio State is also the number 1. I don't think that the committee got this right in a sense that has LSU looked good? Yeah. Ohio State, from just a metric standpoint, I think sort of beats them in almost every single metric, except for they had a bad first half in the last game right before they made, the playoff brackets. And I think that's what Ohio State sort of got punished for is you guys had a bad half and what you were a little bit behind. I think they were playing Wisconsin, was it, right, for the Big Ten championship? Mm-hmm. And they were down, for a little bit for that first half. They ended up coming back and just killing it in the second half. But I think that one bad half that they had is the reason why they went from being number 1 down to being number 2. And that put you on the much harder side of the bracket. I mean, I know Oklahoma is good and they've got a fantastic offense going and maybe their defense is even a little bit underrated. But let's be honest, Oklahoma probably is the weakest of the teams that are in the college playoffs, even weaker than I think Clemson, who a lot of people have said, hey, Clemson hasn't really played anybody, and we always give Alabama crap for not, having the toughest schedule always, but making it. Clemson sort of did the same thing this year, is they didn't have the toughest schedule, but they're undefeated, so it's hard to argue against the returning national champs. But I would much rather play Oklahoma than I would Clemson. And so LSU, I think, is the beneficiary of that.
Oh, of course. I mean, a defending national champion falls below 2 teams despite not losing a game. And you can argue, so like people are like, oh, Trevor Lawrence, he took a step back this year. Well, his QBR is better this year. He's thrown more touchdowns. He's thrown slightly more interceptions. Completion percentage is up. Yards per attempt is up. all the traditional stats we look at to evaluate how a quarterback is doing, all trending in the right way. And this team has been blowing people out coming into the tournament. So it just seemed like they were rounding into form. You have to remember, this team did have 4 defensive linemen drafted off in this year's first round by the NFL. So they were going to be coming in a little bit hurting on that front end of their line. So with that said, I don't want to face this Clemson team. I mean, they have an Andrew Luck type quarterback right now on their team. Teams that have the best quarterback are the most dangerous, you know? Like we saw for years what Deshaun Watson was doing to those Alabama defenses. And just because Clemson had the undeniable best quarterback in college football at that time, why he was drafted below Mitch Trubisky, I'll never understand. They were able to overcome those teams. So Trevor Lawrence, I think he's going to rise to the moment here. And as much as I love Ohio State, I wouldn't be surprised if you told me Clemson won.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would not be surprised either. And that's the thing is it's hard to evaluate Clemson right now. Like we know that they had some close games, right, with teams they probably shouldn't have close games with. But at the same time, like they started blowing people out, sort of like you said, towards the end of the season. Just how good are they, right? Like, have we seen the best version of Clemson? You know, they haven't really been tested all that much, so we don't know, can they hang in there with an Ohio State? And that to me is almost scarier, is you don't know how good they are, right? Like with LSU and Ohio State, if they match up, you know that you've got a game plan really, really well for them. But Clemson, it's like, are we overlooking Clemson a little bit? You know, are they a lot better than we think that they are just because they haven't really had that tough of a schedule? So you're exactly right. And I mean, come on now, like they've just got fantastic coaching. They've been there before. They've won national championships, and so have, you know, Ohio State and stuff. But like, it's just not the same. Like they've got a really good quarterback, really good coaching, and it's a scary time of the year for them. And they just started to peak at the right moment.
And also add this too. There's that surprise factor. Like because they played subpar competition, do you really think that Clemson has rolled out their full playbook yet? They might have been just saving it for these kind of teams. So if you're Ohio State and you're LSU, you've played tough competition throughout the season. You've had to bring your A game at least 3 to 4 times throughout the year. So that tape is out there. So if you're a great head coach like a Dabo Swinney, well, you're licking your chops and you're like watching that game footage because you have a month to prepare. That's one of the advantages of the college football playoffs. You literally have a month to prepare for this game even takes place.
No, you're exactly right. And that's a huge advantage or disadvantage depending on who you are, right? Is that if you didn't have to use all the tricks in your hat, right, or all the tricks up your sleeve, there's still tricks that, you know, Ohio State can't prepare for. But you're right, Ohio State, especially with how close their I don't want to say close, but how contentious their last game was, especially in the first half, is that they sort of had to pull all their tricks out of their hat to make sure that they can make that comeback and then eventually win comfortably. And we've seen, hey, they've played other difficult teams, right? Tough teams that they had to pull out everything to make sure that they got that win. And so you're almost going with, hey, does Clemson still have a trump card up their sleeve, right, that we don't necessarily know about?
I mean, it's certainly a possibility. And with that said, so way too early prediction. Who do you see winning?
I'm gonna go with Ohio State. I think they're the best team in the playoff. I think they're better than LSU. I mean, I could see the argument for LSU having the easier route, right? Like, and I'm not saying that we should overlook Oklahoma by no means, right? They're extremely well coached. Riley does a good job. They've got a good offense. But that's the thing is I think it's defenses that really win college football and football championships in general, right? It's the defense that's really going to hold things down. And so I think that Oklahoma is going to be out of these teams sort of the easiest, and LSU might have an easy path, and maybe they'll be a little bit more rested and a little bit, more energized when they actually do play in the championship. But I still got to go with Ohio State. I think they've had the best metrics. They, look the best all the way up until, this last week they were the number 1 team. So I've got to go with Ohio State.
I'm going to go with Ohio State as well. I guess how I evaluate college football more or less is how many players on your team are going to be at the next level.
Mhm.
And when I look at this Ohio State roster, you have guys that are just absolute studs that will be tearing apart the NFL for the next decade. So you look back to even like those early 2000s Miami teams, that's kind of like what I see when I'm looking at this Ohio State team. So I'm going to pick them. I do think that you're kind of underrating Oklahoma a little bit in terms of that matchup with LSU, because I don't think that LSU is going to necessarily have much rest when you do have to face an explosive offense led by Lincoln Riley. It could turn very easily into one of those games where they're just up and down the field.
Yeah, definitely, right? And I'm not saying that it's going to be a walk in the park by any means. Oklahoma is still, obviously, like, they're there in the playoffs for a reason, right? And I think that they did get that right. I think that the committee got that right with Georgia losing, especially in the fashion that they did. Like, you almost had to put Oklahoma in there. So Oklahoma will give LSU, some difficulties, I'm sure, and it'll make it a game. But out of all the teams that are in the playoff right now, I think Oklahoma is the team that you single out and you say, yeah, that's the team I would rather play than everybody else.
I'm definitely disappointed that Pac-12 couldn't make it. I would have loved to have seen that like difference in this year's playoffs. But I am happy that we're not going to see two SEC teams for the first time since its existence. I feel like the SEC. I'm not going to discount all the elite NFL talent that conference has sent to the pros, but I do think that we just need to see something a little bit different, even if it's necessarily not just swapping out LSU for Alabama or Alabama for LSU, respectively. As far as the Heisman finalists, though, so this announcement is going to be – so we have Joe Burrow, we have both Chase Young, defensive end, and Justin Fields, the quarterback for Ohio State, and then Jalen Hurts. So out of those four guys, who is your prediction to win the Heisman Trophy? I think it has to be Joe Burrow.
I agree. I think it's got to be Joe Burrow. And part of it is it's become a QB award, to be honest, right? Like, when's the last time that a quarterback did not win the award?
It's been quite a while. The last name I can think of, I know that, what's his name? Ndamukong Suh was close. I know Christian McCaffrey was up there. Let me look at the list for the last few Heismans. A quick research break here.
Yeah. I mean, as you do that, right? Like, I think it's definitely got to go to a quarterback. And we saw that Jalen Hurts did struggle in a few games. I think he also was injured for a little bit, right? Like, so there was a stretch of games where you could say that, hey, he's not deserving of the Heisman. But Burrow's just been performing at, an elite level for the entire year. And I've heard some people say that, hey, it's a system thing or his entire team is good that he has around him, right? And so that's the reason. But at the end of the day, when you're putting up the stats that Joe Burrow is putting up, right, it doesn't matter if you think it's the system or not. Like, you sort of just have to go with the best quarterback that's on the field and the numbers that he's putting up, and I think it's going to be Joe Burrow.
The funny thing about that is we potentially looking at the third year in a row where the Heisman Trophy winner is going to be also the number one pick in the NFL draft, something that typically hasn't happened historically. As far as for the main question I was looking up here, so 2015, Derrick Henry, his great season he had at Alabama.
Okay.
But besides that, so here's your last few trophy winners. Kyler Murray, quarterback, Oklahoma. Baker Mayfield, quarterback, Oklahoma. Lamar Jackson, quarterback, Louisville. Then I mentioned Derrick Henry, 2014. Marcus Mariota, quarterback, Oregon. Jameis Winston, quarterback, Florida State. Johnny Football Manziel, quarterback, Texas A&M, 2012. Robert Griffin III, Baylor, 2012. And you have Sam Bradford, Cam Newton. Then you actually do have another Alabama running back in Mark Ingram. So pretty much, unless you're a quarterback or an Alabama running back, you have no chance of winning this award.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and that's what they might as well just rename it to, is the quarterback or Alabama running back award. But that's the thing. I wish that there were a little bit more competition, because I think there are definitely some guys that are deserving at, running back. Maybe not necessarily this season, but I would like to see, other positions possibly get it. But that being said, I think it's going to be a quarterback, and I think it'll be Joe Burrow.
Well, they do have awards out there for the best at a particular position, because they do understand it is quarterback-centric. And it makes sense, because when you look at a football team, the quarterback's what drives it. There's no debate about it. I mean, my Niners were like a 2-win team last year. Jimmy Garoppolo's healthy, and they're suddenly the number 1 seed. That's how big a quarterback difference can make in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that brings us to, so obviously these guys are trending towards the NFL. Let's talk about the NFL, and a former Heisman Trophy winner in Lamar Jackson was playing tonight, Thursday Night Football. And let's look up the final score for that as we are recording as this game was taking place. Not much of a game because, let's face it, we're talking about the Baltimore Ravens, the number 1 seed in the AFC versus the New York Jets. So that final game
that's not going to be a good game, Juju?
Yeah, and I see what the NFL was doing whenever they wanted to come up with a schedule, because in theory, Lamar Jackson, talented sophomore quarterback, versus fellow draft mate Sam Darnold. Final game score, Ravens 42, Jets 21. So they got doubled up on Thursday Night Football. Sam Darnold drafted at number 3 versus Lamar Jackson, who was drafted at 31. When you compare those two quarterbacks, let's do this. In 10 years, who is more likely to still be starting for an NFL team?
In 10 years from now?
10 years from now. Doesn't necessarily even have to be the team that they're currently on.
So 10 years from now, I think I'm going to go Sam Darnold. And my reasoning being is the style of play. And I don't think Lamar Jackson, he hasn't had that many health scares or health concerns, right? But the fact that he does scramble so often, and without a doubt, he's gotten better at being a pocket passer. And I think he could definitely suffice and be above average as a pocket passer. Maybe not a great, right? Like maybe not a Pat Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers where he's just making beautiful passes all the time. But I think he does rely on his legs a lot. And so one, that runs the risk of injury. And 2, I just think your style starts to, if you're of that style, right, and you're relying on athletics, that's going to fade as you start to get older. So 10 years from now, I still think it will be Sam Darnold. However, in the next few years, I think better career-wise will be Lamar Jackson.
Well, ranking those first-round quarterbacks from that draft class, I think it's pretty easy to name Lamar number 1 right now. Mm-hmm. I think it's pretty easy to name Josh Rosen number 5. Where the middle, it gets a little bit complex. So right now, I would probably put Josh Allen as my second ranked. And then it's a debate whether you would rather have Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold right now. Mm-hmm. We know where Colin Cowherd stands on this. Where do you stand on that?
I go with thick and trunky, bro.
You go with thick and trunky? I mean, Baker's trying to get thicker. I've noticed him get quite a bit thicker, in fact. Again,
I know, man. Maybe him and Andy Ruiz have been hanging out too much.
Right, they're on that same sort of diet. Actually, their facial hair is kind of similar too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, maybe Baker Mayfield's just going to slowly morph into Andy Ruiz as the years go by.
Well, here's what happened. He got married. This is what married life does to you. He's got that full-on like husband bod going on, not quite at dad bod levels yet. Mm-hmm. So he just has all that cringe mustache. I know something about that.
Yes, you do, Juju. All of high school.
You're just ants at a picnic right now with that. Anyway, yeah. So I mean, Baker, it's gonna be interesting to see what his career develops into with all the noise around him. But Sam Darnold, it's just the Jets, man. They just have done this. Like when they brought in Adam Gase, you can argue that he's probably going to be on his 3rd coach in 3 years, because I wouldn't be surprised if they let Adam Gase go this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. And it sucks that the Jets are just one of those teams that always underperforms, right? And at least for as far as I can remember, right, they're an underperforming franchise. And that's part of the issue, like we said, is when it comes to these guys, I think Lamar Jackson was actually fortunate that he went a little bit further back, because further back in the draft, you actually have your organizations that are more put together and more well run, because they're not consistently bad, right? That they're at the top of the draft. And so you have your Clevelands and you have your Jets, right? and your Miami Dolphins and organizations like that are just always bad. And so then you're a really good quarterback. And that's why I say that Sam Darnold, I think will still be around in the league as a starter, because I think he is talented. He's just in a super bad situation with the Jets, and just a bad team, bad coaching situation, bad ownership.
What do you think is Sam Darnold's ceiling still? Because I think we all know Lamar Jackson's ceiling is obviously a Heisman, or not, obviously an MVP winner, a Heisman winner too, but also an MVP winner.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I kind of wonder what the track record is for Heisman winners also winning league MVP. That can't be a big number right there. Research for later.
Yep,
But
we'll look into it.
But that would be an amazing stat. His right now at the pace Baltimore is going, you have to assume that his ceiling is also going to be a Super Bowl champion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, can you say the same thing about Sam Darnold with the Jets? I mean, I know it's such a foreign concept to us to even think about the Jets as a Super Bowl caliber team. They were in the AFC Championship game 10 years back, twice, back-to-back years. You can say Sanchez beat Tom Brady in the playoffs.
Yeah, and that's the difficult thing, right? Is how do you separate the quarterback from the team, right? Is how do you pull that out and say, is Sam Darnold a potentially Super Bowl winning quarterback, or just because his team is so bad, right? Like, what if you put Lamar Jackson on the Jets team right now? Do you think they have just as much success?
I couldn't see it. I was hearing an interesting debate of whether or not Taysom Hill would work anywhere besides the Saints. And if you told me Taysom Hill signed with the, I don't know, Jacksonville Jaguars, I would just assume that's just to get a payday.
Mm-hmm.
For Lamar Jackson, I think it would just be kind of him getting infused into a bad situation, because you also are dependent on the Jets to draft your offensive line. And part of the problem when we talk about these teams are just bad year after year after year. Yeah, you get the benefit of being at the top of the draft, but if you have a poor scouting department, if you have a track record for poor drafting, then why am I supposed to assume that you're going to get better at it, get the benefit of the doubt?
Yeah, exactly, right? And in poor ownership, obviously, you couldn't find yourself a good GM in the first place, hence why you're in this situation, and, why you can't find good coaches, and being just a bad franchise, it just sucks for these guys that do have talent. Now, that being said, I can't see Sam Darnold as that, Super Bowl or MVP caliber quarterback. Do I think he could be very good? Absolutely. I would be interested, even like a team like the Steelers, right, where we're on our third string quarterback. We got Duck Hodges. I'd like to see Sam Darnold on our team. I think he would do a fantastic job, and I think, he would do even better, and I think we would be competing right there with the Ravens. But do I think he would ever be playing quite at the level that Lamar Jackson is right now? No. But like I said, Lamar Jackson's style of play, though, I also don't think is sustainable for like 10 years down the road.
I think one thing to factor in is we mentioned that his offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, could potentially get a job somewhere else this coming year. Mm-hmm. If that happens, then, that is going to be a big change for Lamar to adjust to. And then his need to become a better pocket passer is going to escalate with that coaching modification, because as much as I do think Harbaugh is a good coach, I don't think he has the acumen to necessarily run the offense. You have to remember that Harbaugh's background prior to becoming the Ravens head coach was as a special teams coordinator. Mm-hmm. So if you do have Greg Roman leave, that could be a huge loss. I mean, I think it's underrated when we see coordinators move. I mean, look at the Atlanta Falcons after Kyle Shanahan left there. It did impact the offense in a huge way that they haven't been able to replicate quite since. And Greg Roman is such a unique coordinator because he has worked with these offensive running quarterbacks. With that said, looking at these two teams right now, so again, you have the Ravens right now sitting at 12-2. Do you think they're going to be able to just run the table
and win out? Oh, man. At this point, right, sort of like we said with Amanda Nunes and Khabib Nurmagomedov, like they are the heavy hitter, juggernaut that's in the NFL right now, and I can see it happening. Like, it's hard to see a team that stops them at the moment. here's I think part of the issue though is that they've just been winning so much, right? And it's easy to say that, oh, it's hard to see a team that beats them. And I think that's when you sort of get caught off guard, right? Like you rest, you're back on your laurels, and then, out of nowhere, that's when you get upset and you get beat. So I almost think it would be better for the Ravens to lose, in the next week or two and to suffer an upset loss now. And then you're sort of a little bit hungrier. And I think that they would win out. Right now, for the rest of the season, though, I think it's a little bit difficult.
Well, they get to play Cleveland and you guys. I think you guys to end the season there. And I think obviously the Steelers are going to be motivated in that game because you actually have playoff implications that are going to be at stake in that game.
And we went overtime the last time that we played them earlier this year, right? Like you could have argued that one thing changes and we win that game.
And the Browns blew them out too. Mm-hmm. So these are the two teams that gave the Ravens troubles throughout the year. And I was almost right on my upset pick for them last week against the Bills. That was not as far off of a game as many people thought it would be. Bills are a competitive team. Don't count them out if they manage to sneak by the first round and play this team again. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an upset there.
Yeah. I mean, I think – so I don't know if the Ravens necessarily win out. I think they'll still be the Super Bowl champs, but I think maybe they suffer an upset at either Browns or Steelers.
Okay, cool. I guess we'll see how it pans out. Let's get into the Sunday slate. So I think it's safe to say that the Patriots will be more than prepared for their opponent, the Cincinnati Bengals, this upcoming week.
Yeah, 8 minutes of film will help you with that.
Patriots are 10-point favorites going on the road. Now, we have seen a little scrappier Bengals team the last couple weeks. Andy Dalton coming back has been a huge plus to this team's offense. It just shows that they should have probably not benched him in the first place. Now, with that said, this is a huge talent difference right here, these two teams. I know that the Patriots offense has looked terrible in recent weeks. Julian Edelman might miss this game, which would be horrible because obviously they already are struggling at the wide receiver position as a whole. But obviously, come on, it's the Bengals versus the Patriots. If this game isn't over 10 points, then something went horribly wrong. And maybe the Patriots should stop watching Bengals footage because they're picking up some bad habits if that happens.
I know. So, I mean, here's the thing, too. If you're the Bengals, right, you can't just force-feed Joe Mixon and beat the Patriots, right? Like, you're going to have to do other things. And Andy Dalton, like we said, has, they probably never should have benched him. There's just a difference in just talent. There's a difference in coaching and pedigree. And I just think that the Patriots are going to win this. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe it's going to be a little bit closer than people think. But when I say it's going to be closer, like, it's not going to be that close of a game, though. It's not going to be like a field goal game. I think the Patriots are going to still win it easily.
Well, I mean, we just got to go back to the start of the year when they were playing these weaker teams and what they were doing to them. I think that it's going to be hard for the Bengals offense to move the ball, especially because Bill Belichick has done some things against this type of offense in the past. Let's face it, Zach Taylor, he comes from that Los Angeles Rams system, and we all saw the Super Bowl last year. And then it's the big question when it comes to the line of 10 points is just going to be New England's offense because they have sputtered in a huge way. And you can say, at least on the Bengals side of things, they do have players like Geno Atkins still there. They can make plays, cause some issues for that offensive line. Mm-hmm. But still, I mean, I don't see how the Patriots don't cover this. So, yeah. All right. Now, I have a big question for you. Who in Detroit do you owe money? Why? Why are the Lions still above like several teams that have either one beat them or two have like almost half of their point differential?
So when it comes to the Lions, I think I'm still just holding on to like the Matt Stafford days of, this year when he actually they looked good at the start of the year. And I was like, wow, I'm amazed. This is a good Lions team. And I think I'm still stuck in like November. So I don't know, early November, right? Is I'm still stuck back there. And so I don't know. I don't have a good reason for it, but I'll probably drop the Lions a little bit further this coming week.
I was just the most surprised that you like had them above like teams like Denver, who just like blew out the Texans last week.
But the Texans can be inconsistent. So
yeah, but they also have two more wins than the Lions too.
Yeah, like I said, holding on to the good Matt Stafford days before he broke his back.
All almost beating the Chiefs and tying the Cardinals. Is that what we're holding on to, Aundre?
That's what I hold on to. That that tells me they got hopes if they could almost beat the Chiefs, man. They're a talented team.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I think there's really not a whole lot of good reasoning behind it, right? Like I really do think that's part of it. Is I just keep every time I think of the Lions, I'm like, oh yeah, they're that good scrappy team, right? That almost beat the Chiefs and had some wins that were maybe a little bit of an upset or can be viewed as an upset. Though I know that they're not that team anymore, especially with Matt Stafford being out. Like their season's sort of just gone down the hill.
Aundre, I have to come at you for being hypocritical here. So you do not believe that Bill Belichick and the Patriots organization had oversight when it came to their documentary, and yet you have oversight in your rankings.
So there's no rules when it comes to my rankings, though. If I wanted, I could put the Lions number 1 in my power rankings, and there's no rule against that. Bill Belichick, there's rules against what they're doing. Okay,
fair enough. But with that said, I'm going to be setting some ground rules.
Okay, fine.
Probably my one ground rule I'm going to start for NFL games is you should not be able to be a 30-30 quarterback. And what I mean by that, a quarterback that throws 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions and still win in this league, because that's what Jameis Winston is on pace to accomplish, a NFL first. So the Buccaneers are 3.5-point favorites going into Detroit this week. I think that there is nothing really defensively that the Lions have to stop the Buccaneers on offense. I think Bruce Arians is going to have a field day. So I actually do think they're going to cover that line right there. But with that said, I just have an interesting question on this one. Do you pick up Jameis Winston's contract? Do you extend him if you're the Buccaneers? Because it's really a weird season right now. And the Buccaneers could be 7-7 if they win this game.
I know. And I just worry that, like, accuracy and throwing that many interceptions, like, can you coach that out of somebody? I don't know. And, Arians is supposed to be one of the best quarterback coaches that there is and one of the best offensive coaches that there is. And the fact that you're still having that many interceptions, I think that's just a symptom and sign of a not so great quarterback. And so that's why I think it's time that you move off him, just because I just don't know if you can necessarily coach accuracy into somebody.
But with that said, if you are Jameis Winston, your argument is, yeah, I throw a lot of picks, but you know what I also throw? Touchdowns, yards. Some would argue are these hollow stats because your team hasn't been doing a lot of winning, but what have Tampa Bay really had on the defensive side of the ball the last few years or throughout his existence in Tampa Bay? Yeah. So they just play these back and forth games constantly. So if not the Bucs, where could Jameis land? Because he has a future. He's not going to be a bench quarterback by any means. He's not going to be out of the league.
Yeah, and I think that there's going to be quite a few teams that are going to be looking for a quarterback, right? Like we said, Carolina might be one of those teams. You got Jacksonville might be one of those teams. Looks like the Chargers will probably be one of those teams, unless you're on the whole Tom Brady going down to the Chargers bandwagon, right? Mm-hmm. Honestly, even the Steelers maybe start to look, right? We know that Big Ben's getting older. We know Mason Rudolph is not the answer. And Duck Hodges, as great as he's been for us, I don't know if I trust him as, your franchise quarterback. And so there'll be the Steelers. The Bengals are going to be looking to move off of Andy Dalton. We already saw that. Like, they benched him, right?
But they're going to draft more than likely.
They will likely draft in here. But, you never know, right? Is maybe they want Jameis Winston for a year or two, right? And then whoever it is that they draft, maybe sitting behind him. But if you're going to waste a first-round draft pick, right, you don't want them sitting. Like a number one draft pick, you don't want them sitting. But.
Well, what kind of contract would you accept if you're Jameis? Do you want to sign a long-term? Do you want to sign short-term? what's a proper evaluation, I do think that based off like comparable quarterbacks, he's probably in that between $20 and $30 million a year range.
Mm-hmm.
But the years is going to be the big thing, because I don't think he is a bridge quarterback. I think if you are signing him, he does make enough plays in a game to where you have to at least give him the benefit of the doubt that he can like elevate talent around him. The wide receivers around him certainly are having amazing seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there is something there. There was a reason why he was a Heisman winner, why he was the number 1 overall pick. And it's not just holding on to it, because statistically we have seen it before. It's just the character issues that come into question with Jameis. Obviously, the decision-making, the crab legs incident, the Uber incident, his decision-making on the field with the interceptions come into play. It can drive a lot of head coaches crazy. So if you are a younger head coach, like when we talk about these teams in transition at the coaching position, I wouldn't say it's be the best investment for them unless they literally during their coaching interview with your team said, all right, who's the free agent quarterbacks coming up? Jameis, I want that guy. That guy's my guy. And that's what Bruce Arians did when he took the Tampa Bay job. Because remember, Bruce Arians was in retirement.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have to come back to coaching, but he said, oh, Tampa's open? And also remember, Cleveland was open too. And he's picked Jameis over Cleveland and Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, but I mean, I wonder how much of that was at least what he thought to be the drama within Cleveland, right? And that
we didn't see any. I mean, we didn't see any drama before the season started. Remember, it was all bells and whistles over there in Cleveland.
That's true. I think maybe not necessarily drama, but they did have a lot of spotlight on them. I guess is what I'll say. So it was more a spotlight. But yeah, no, you're exactly. I think you're right, and I think Jameis can demand a more long-term contract. And if I'm Jameis, like that's what I would personally be shooting for, especially with how inconsistent that he's been. So if I'm his agent, I'm definitely saying like, look, we want a long-term contract, and we want a team that's going to commit to us for a long time. And I would like to see how good of a quarterback he'll be with, an even better team around him, right? If he were to go to one of those really good franchises outside of a Tampa Bay.
Yeah, that's fair. Tampa Bay is also one of those organizations, but you would say at least Bruce Arians should be one of those stabilizing like hands right there. I think,
yeah, and it might take a few years for him though. It's young, and as far as Bruce Arians' career with the Buccaneers, right? And so maybe it's going to take a few years to develop that.
I would say if you're Tampa, I would resign him. To be honest, I'm looking at the quarterbacks around the league. Jameis has at least gone into, again, in theory, let's say they win their next 3 games, they could be 9-7. You would look at that year as a success. Even if they finished 8-8, I think that's a successful year for this Tampa team. Mm-hmm. Let's say you can add more pieces on the defensive side of the ball because that's where you have the most lack of talent. And Jameis, just keep throwing it out there. He has Mike Evans. He has Chris Godwin there. Mm-hmm. It's a good thing. They probably need a running back. I don't believe in Ronald Jones nearly as much as some. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, there's things I like about Tampa Bay if they keep this going, because if you do get Jameis, you also have to say, who are you bringing in to replace him?
Yeah, and I think that would be the big question, especially with the quarterback situation around the league right now, in which there's a ton of teams that are going to be looking for potentially their future quarterback coming up this offseason even. And so then you're going to be in competition with all of those teams, and you potentially at least let go somebody with a pretty high floor, right? Like maybe Jameis doesn't have the ceiling of maybe necessarily a Super Bowl winning quarterback, but we can tell that he can carry your franchise. And if you let him walk, now you have to possibly take a gamble or compete with some of the other teams that are going to be looking for some of the quarterbacks. So I do get that reasoning there. I just think it's difficult. Like you can't teach accuracy. And if Jameis is having that many issues, right, or poor decision making, right, like it's difficult to teach better decision making and better accuracy.
Mm-hmm. Kyle Shanahan actually had a great quote about this in regards to Jimmy G a couple weeks ago. He said, yeah, you hate the interceptions, but you could just keep pounding your head against the wall for a guy that can't make plays. You can ignore the interceptions if you have a guy that you at least trust to make the plays, because when they're not making plays and they're throwing interceptions, then
that's when it's bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this is actually a perfect transition, not directly our next game, but a game I think is worth talking about because obviously Jameis was drafted number 1. Drafted number 2 in that draft was Marcus Mariota in the Tennessee Titans organization. Well, the Titans since inserting Ryan Tannehill over Mariota, have been one of the hottest teams. So remember during the start of the year how we were like, I don't know. Can I pick the Titans? Can I not? Can I trust them? Well, newsflash, was Ryan Tannehill? You can trust this team. They're actually a top 10 team for me in my power ranks. They're good. I mean, Derrick Henry's just running over people. The defense is showing up. Tannehill's making plays. He's making the smart decisions. Obviously, one of the big bugaboos for Tannehill has always been his injury history. But as long as he's healthy, this Titan team is scary. And the fact that they're playing the Texans and are 3-point favorites at home, this is for the division.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And they've just been on a tear. And I think for me, whenever I think of the Titans, I still think of the Marcus Mariota, right? So sort of that same effect that I have with the Lions where I overrate them, I continually underrate the Titans. But like looking at their record, looking at their past performances, like these past few weeks since Tannehill, like you said, came in, they're a good team and they're a scary team. And if I'm the Texans, I've got to be terrified, right? Like the Texans, if they had won that Denver Broncos game, they're not necessarily in this situation. Now they're in the situation where they run the risk of losing this game and not winning the division anymore.
Yeah, you do not want to be a wild card and not even get a home game in the playoffs. I think it's pretty safe to say that the AFC South is probably the favorite to send 2 teams right now. But, I mean, the Texans, in theory, they could also miss the playoffs because you have that surging Steelers team right behind them in the standings, too. So a lot of pressure on this game right here. The loser could potentially be out of the playoffs if the Steelers can hold serve. With that said, picking a winner, still tough because these are 2 teams that I consider pretty close to each other. Give me continued success from the Titans. I like what I'm seeing right now. They're just a well-run team. They don't make the critical mistake. And the Texans, they're actually one of the more up and down teams. How can you go from beating Tom Brady and the New England Patriots at home to getting blown out by a rookie quarterback making his second start?
Yeah, it's not a good look for the Texans, right? I think I'm still going to go with the Texans, though, just because I've seen that potential of them to be able to be a team like a Tom Brady, right, and the New England Patriots. And I've seen them be able to hang in there with some of the best teams in the league. And, the Titans are on definitely a run, but I'll take the Texans.
Okay, good. I mean, the Titans have beaten the Chiefs, too, this year.
Yeah, that's true. But was that when Mahomes was injured?
No, that was Mahomes' first game back.
That was Mahomes' first game back? I mean, you could chalk that up to that injury, though.
True. But either way, they're playing really well. They're one of the more fun teams to see play in the league right now. Okay, absolutely. So speaking of surging teams right now, so the Bears have actually rattled off 4 straight, and they get to play their long, historic rivals, the Green Bay Packers, in Lambeau this week. 4-point favorites are the Packers. Now, come on, I called this. You only beat the Redskins by 5 points at home. Kind of tells you there's some holes right now with this Packers team.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I've had Aaron Rodgers on my fantasy team, and I even said this last week, and I don't know why I didn't play to what I said, but Aaron Rodgers never has 2 good weeks in a row. And the week before last, he had a great week, and he put up, great statistics, put up tons of fantasy points. And I knew even against a team like Washington, he was not going to have a good performance. And sure enough, he did not.
Now, for this one, so it's funny because we just wrote off Mitch Trubisky as he's not going to be back with the Bears next year. We talked about the quarterback carousel and could Jameis be a good fit with the Bears or something? Maybe Matt Nagy would love a playmaker more like him. But at this point, if Mitch plays like this way down the stretch, it puts you in this conundrum. How much do you invest in Mitch Trubisky long term? Or at least do you give him another couple years to figure it out? Because as Matt Nagy put it coming into the year, his first year in the offense was Matt Nagy 101. He failed his sophomore year in that offense. Is he going to bounce back? Can he retake the courses and get some junior credit?
I mean, this is why I don't get paid to be a GM, right? Because I think this is potentially a job killer, situation, is that if you stick it out and he does not bounce back and he does not, he's not the quarterback that you had thought and wanted to stick it out for, then everybody's going to be saying like, look, there was the warning signs. You didn't take the warning signs. Everybody was telling you that he's not the quarterback that, you think that he is. And, it ruins you. But at the same time, like in recent weeks, he's been performing well enough that it makes you like, oh, maybe he is a good quarterback. Maybe there is a reason we moved up so high in the draft to get him over some of the other quarterbacks, right, that are outperforming him right now. So I'm just glad that I don't have to make that decision. I'm still going to say that I don't necessarily trust it. I don't know if I stick with Trubisky.
I would probably get rid of him. I mean, he's just going to be an enigma that's going to torture you for the next 2 years. And the next question with that one is going to be like, if Matt Nagy is just like going to be his job security having to work with Mitch Trubisky. Mm-hmm. So I mean, could be a potential job killer for you as the coach too. So I would put some pressure on your GM to say, I don't know if this is the guy I want to work with. But at the same time, Matt Nagy also accepted the job fully, knowing that Mitch Trubisky was going to be his guy. So it's kind of like a dual-edged sword right there. For the game result, I think if you're the Bears, you have to look at the blueprint for beating the Packers. Run the ball. Mm-hmm. The Packers just do not have a good run defense at all. And if you can be a physical team with them, you're going to give them a lot of issues. The key to success is you are not having Mitch throw over 20 times this game. That is not going to be a winning formula for you. So if you can manage to get something going with David Montgomery, maybe a mix of a little Tariq Cohen, you can win. However, I'm going to say that the Packers win at home. They need this. I mean, the Bears need this too. The Bears are hanging on for dear life for their playoff hopes as well. But I just think that the Packers are a little bit better than the Bears.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the Packers are a little bit better than the Bears. And again, sort of that big brothers sort of syndrome. We saw that the Packers already beat the Bears. And honestly, it's tough to beat the same team twice in 1 year. So I wouldn't be surprised if they split the series. But still, I think the Packers, especially at home with that crowd, give me them.
Yeah. I don't want to write off this next team going into a tough matchup, especially because they just find ways to keep impressing me. The Denver Broncos are going into Kansas City this week, 9.5-point underdogs. So it's going to be it's only going to be Drew Lock's third start as a quarterback. If you haven't listened, Denver Bronco fans are already forgiving Elway for all his woes at quarterback after seeing one positive Drew Lock performance. I mean, he looked good. There's no denying that. I was impressed with what I saw, but let's pump the brakes a little bit, guys. It's just amazing because, again, this Broncos team, they are just like right there on the cusp of, if they hadn't blown some of those games early in the season, this team's on the wild card talk potentially. Mm-hmm. Hell, even in the division talk.
Yeah, and it sucks, right? Especially that they were in the position to win a lot of those games, and it all came down to that last minute or that last drive, right? I still think that the Chiefs are better, like one of the better teams, and the Chiefs are at home. I'm still going to take the Chiefs, but you're right. I would like to see the Broncos fight hard, scrap hard. I think you're right about hey, let's pump the brakes on these young quarterbacks, right? Everybody saw what happened with Daniel Jones. Everyone was like, oh, man, he's fantastic. Look at this quarterback. And then we started to see, a few games in, okay, maybe not. And I think that's what happened with Trubisky last year is everybody's like, oh, he's going to be this fantastic quarterback. Let's buy in. And then he wasn't, right? And so I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen with Locke, but, let's slow down just a little bit.
Yeah, all right. I'm going to take the Chiefs. Obviously, they're still fighting for a bye week here. So very important game for them. Obviously, you have the slumping Patriots. They're just hoping for some luck to happen and them to win. Hey, you won't find a bigger Cincinnati supporter in the world than Andy Reid right now. Go ahead and give me the Chiefs. All right, our next game of the weekend is going to be this is going to have a huge draft implications right here. The Miami Dolphins are going into New York this week. Well, for the second week in a row, actually, to face the New York Giants this time. 3.5-point underdogs on the road again. I wonder if they just stayed in New York. I mean, literally, like you're playing at the same stadium back-to-back weeks.
You might as well, right? And maybe practice at a high school stadium or something like that. I don't know, or a college stadium.
Get acclimated to the cold or something, because obviously you're a team from Miami, where you're used to beautiful weather.
Yeah, exactly. And why waste the time traveling back down just to travel right back up? So might as well.
Yeah, if you're a listener right now and you haven't caught on to the fact we're talking about weather and travel instead of the actual game itself, and it tells you how these teams are respectively. With that said, the Giants have lost 8 games in a row. I was legitimately tempted to move them behind the Bengals this week because they're sliding pretty far. At least the Bengals are looking scrappier, similar to how I elevated the Dolphins in our rankings at a certain point this season. This is what I'm kind of starting to see on their end, and you're just seeing like no fight really left with the Giants. I mean, I guess Eli gave them a little spark against the Eagles, but the Eagles are a very bad, good team as well. So with that said, give me the Dolphins. I mean, they're used to the weather out there. They're used to the stadium, clearly, playing 2 weeks in a row there. And, I mean, you just see more fight in that team than you've seen with the Giants the last couple of weeks. I don't know if Eli or Jones is starting this week, though. That's the question I would have.
I know. Dang it. So I was also going to pick the Dolphins, but I guess just to be different, I'll go ahead with the Giants. Though I really think that the Dolphins could win this. Like you said, they are a scrappy team. Even though they're bad, they're still scrappy. They still show signs that they want to win games, whereas the Giants just look flat. And, they have since their hot start to the season. And so I'll take the Giants just to be different, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins win.
Yeah, it's looking more and more like Eli is going to also get this start as well. Daniel Jones is still not really practicing. Mm-hmm. So, all right, second week in a row for the Eli farewell tour. Let's hope he doesn't fall another game under 500. But like I said, I'm going to go with the Dolphins. At least they're playing harder. They probably would benefit more from the loss, though, considering they're looking for a quarterback, whereas the Giants are probably going to be looking at more like Chase Young that early in the draft. All right.
Or just a new team.
Probably a new team, new coach. I mean, I'll say this. The Maras are one of the better owners. We always talk about like bad ownership. Yeah. The Maras are a good ownership. Robert Kraft is a great ownership. He does everything for his players, even films other teams.
I know. Let's all fight. Hence why they have a dynasty.
All right, back into the AFC East. So the Eagles, the enigma that is Philadelphia right now, they allowed the Eli Manning Giants to put up a decent performance against them on Monday night. Hell, Eli had 2 touchdowns in that first half and was just doing it to Darius Slayton the entire game.
I know. This team is just as garbage as you can be for being second in your division. And what would frustrate me so much if I were an Eagles fan is the fact that the Cowboys are literally trying to give you the lead in the division and your team won't take it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just right there for the taking. What's ultimately going to come down to is actually next week when they have to beat the Cowboys. But you have to win this one too, because right now, so we'll talk about the game for the Cowboys coming up here a little later. They play the Rams, which I think is a much tougher game. You have to capitalize. I mean, the Redskins, they've shown a little bit of a spark lately, but this is still not a good team. This is a bad team. Beat bad teams. People always give the Patriots shit for beating the bad teams. Well, there is a little merit to beating the teams you should beat. That's what separates the mediocre from the top tier.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. And outside of the wide receiving core being, either injured or, non-existent for the Eagles, they're still the more talented team. They're still the better team. There's no way that they should lose this game. And the fact that, they've competed with some really good teams out there, the Eagles need to win this game. And So I'm going to take the Eagles. I've got faith in you. Take the lead, right? Like, you guys can do it. But the Eagles are just a bad good team, or a good bad team, however you want to say it. But they should beat the Redskins.
They are a 5-point favorite on the road. I am picking them, but I don't think they cover.
I agree. I'm going to take the under.
All right. We have the Seattle Seahawks. They are going into Carolina this week. So our theory about the Panthers coming out with a little bit of punch after the Ron Rivera firing was not the case. The Falcons happened to blow them out in their last game. And so this team actually looks like it had the opposite effect. They quit after their coach got fired.
Yeah.
Now, can they come back together to beat a Seahawks team that really would need this victory for playoff implications? Because the Seahawks are also a weird team. So outside of Russell Wilson, you can definitely tell that there's not a lot to love about the Seahawks roster right now. It showed in that Rams game. And they even lost Rashad Penny, who was starting to come around for them. Like, if it wasn't for the Ron Rivera firing, if Ron Rivera was still there, you might have been able to talk me into the Panthers winning this game. But as it currently sits, knowing what I know, I'm going to go with the Seahawks on the road.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Seahawks just need that bounce back win. They understand that. Their coaches understand that. The players understand that. Everybody knows Seahawks have to bounce back in order for, the playoff implications, like you're saying. I think they do. And Russell Wilson, I mean, even though he couldn't get them the win last week, he's still Russell Wilson, and he's still performing at an MVP caliber.
Yeah, well, kind of not much if you look at his last 4 performances. So it's definitely Lamar's to lose at this point.
He's straining his back from carrying the whole damn team, Juju.
Okay, so you're saying I should give him a little bit of ease off him a little bit?
Exactly.
Well, I'm not going to ease off the Raiders here, because their last 3 games, they have been outscored by a total of 116 to 33 against the Jets, Titans, and who else did they play in the middle? The Chiefs, respectively. That's not good. But you know who also is not good? The Jaguars. Doug Marrone, he is officially pretty much done. He's on his last legs over there in Jacksonville. You can tell this team it doesn't matter who's starting. Minshew, Foles, whoever. This team is a bad team. So who's worse?
I'm going to say the Raiders right now. I'm going to take the Jags. So,
okay.
Why? I have no reasoning. They're both kind of bad teams. And the Raiders, they started off really good. And so maybe if I'm going to try to say something, maybe it's the Raiders are actually more, I guess, talented or synergistic than the Jaguars. But still, I'm going to go against that thinking. I'm going to go with the Jags.
I am going to go with the Raiders in this one. I guess I picked the Jags way too much because they seem to find a way to let me down. I was actually confident in that Minshew return game they might have been able to pull something off against the Chargers, but instead they got blown out. Austin Eckler was just putting on a show against them last week. So, yeah, I mean, I'll go with the Raiders. I don't feel great about it because both these teams have been disappointing in recent weeks. But I will at least say that the Raiders, in theory, should be the better team just on record pretty much alone, because when you look at, again, their ugly point differential, it's like, is this a good team? Because they really aren't playing like it. Come on, you lost, like I said, 116 to 33. That's almost like 20 points a game.
Yeah, they just fell off of a cliff. Like, they had such a good year, and that was the thing is, I was saying, hey, Gruden is possibly in the running for Coach of the Year. I think this last stretch has sort of taken him out of that. And you could still argue that he's a fantastic coach with what he's been able to do with this Raiders team that everybody thought was going to be horrible. But still, it's I don't know, a mess right now.
Well, you know what I overheard? So, thing about the Raiders team is a lot of people are saying, well, Gruden still hasn't got a chance to bring in his guys on defense, right? Well, actually, the majority of that defensive roster is Gruden guys or have been acquired since Gruden has got there. So it is kind of on him a little bit. Unless the Raiders unless the Raiders were to win out, I don't think there's any chance that Gruden's even in that consideration.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Next game we have the matchup of former Oklahoma quarterbacks, which is kind of a fun game to see. We have Baker Mayfield going on the road to face his predecessor at Oklahoma, Kyler Murray. So 2 Heisman winners, 2 number 1 picks, Cleveland at Arizona. I heard someone said that it feels like even when the Browns win a game, it feels like a loss. I will take them in this game because Arizona has been just awful in recent weeks. They have not looked nearly as explosive as they did at points. Yeah, I think they've lost like 7 straight games now. So, yeah, I'll take the Baker Mayfield-led Browns, but don't feel great about it.
Okay, I'll be contrarian and I'll go with the Cardinals. I mean, I think you're right. The Cardinals have not looked as good. They have not looked as explosive, but they do have home field advantage. The Browns are a little bit of a mess right now, and there's, distractions with the media, right, and calling the training team poor. Maybe the training team's going to sabotage Baker Mayfield now. I don't know. But I'll take the Cardinals just to be a little bit different.
Put like icy hot in his trench coat or something.
Or his jockstrap.
His jockstrap. Yeah. Just mess with him, just like the most juvenile pranks they can think of.
Exactly.
Shave off half his mustache.
Yeah. That way he's, doing the whole, what's his name? Cleveland from Family Guy. You just clip off a little bit and make him go crazy.
Yeah. Guess we'll see. All right. Vikings, they are going into Los Angeles this week, 1.5-point favorites. So, I mean, the Chargers played better last week, but I do think that the Jaguars kind of have given up on the season, so it's hard to evaluate based off that game. I do think that there is a potential for an upset in this game, and what I'll elaborate on that one is in saying that obviously we look at we look at Kirk Cousins more as a traditional pocket passer. Well, the Chargers can apply some heat with Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa. I do think that's a potentially bad matchup for him. You know what? I'm going to be a little bit daring here. I'm going to pick the Chargers in an upset.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting about the Chargers is they always play to their competition as well, right? So they'll play down to the really bad teams, and we've seen them lose to very bad teams before. But at the same time, like, they're capable and they can win against some of the really good teams, and they can beat, teams like the Chiefs and those really good teams like that. And so I don't think that that's too far, out of the realm of possibilities. And I think you're probably right that it could be a good upset pick. I'll still go with the Vikings, though. I know that the Vikings are really playing hard for that, for that playoff spot. And so I think the Vikings are still going to win it, especially the Chargers are a team they should beat. But we'll see. I definitely would not be surprised if the Chargers are able to pull off that upset.
Okay. Next game. So I don't lie. I'm worried about this from a trap game perspective. But, Aundre, if you do me a favor and bet against my team once more, I'd appreciate it. So the Falcons are actually going to be going into San Francisco this week, so home game for the Niners. That game is going to be sitting at a 11-point line in the Niners' favor. I don't like that line, to be honest, because the Falcons, we talk about teams playing hard at this point in the year. It's hard to ignore that they have been playing better. They blew out the Panthers just this past week.
And for no apparent reason. Like, they just want to start playing hard all of a sudden when their season's gone. But,
I did see a thing that they did in their locker room that may have impacted perhaps why they're recently playing well. So apparently they put positions into a hat and basically realign the coaching staff. So it's a bit of a unique idea, a bit hokey, but hard to argue with the results that they've been playing better. Could you imagine that one though? Just like, hey guys, so Dan Quinn talking. Hey guys, so things aren't looking too good for me here. So I just was looking on Pinterest and I saw a neat idea that could really spice up the office here. So I got this hat here. Everyone pick a new position, and yeah, it's kind of like Secret Santa, except if you choose wrong, you lose your job.
That just does not seem like a good idea to me. I don't know how you pass that and get it okayed by everybody else, like the GM, the owners of like, hey, I know that, this is supposed to be our defensive coach, our special teams coach, our offensive coach, but we're just going to mix things up. and everybody's just going to draw at random and hope it works. Like, oh my gosh.
I mean, we've seen teams do stuff like that. It's not completely irrelevant. I'm sure that actually Dan Quinn actually pulled that from maybe even another coach or former coach he may have worked with.
Possibly, yeah.
But I mean, again, sometimes you just need to spice up a locker room. Maybe they're just having some differences. They are playing hard. So I will take the Niners, but I'm going to take under on that line there. I just think that the Falcons are going to be playing well. I do think that the fact that Richard Sherman's probably going to miss this game is going to affect the Niners. They suffered a lot of injuries in that Saints game. I mean, It was a hell of a game for a reason. People were just game bodied out there.
Yeah, and it was a fantastic game to watch. It was definitely fun. I agree. I'm going to take the 49ers. I think they're going to win this game. As good as the Falcons have been playing, they're not necessarily like a great team. And the 49ers are just that. They are a great team. So even though, like you said, they've got a few injuries, right, especially coming out of their last game. But I think the 49ers are just a better team.
Okay, so we got the Rams and the Cowboys this week. So lots going to be riding for both these teams. If you're the Rams, there's no way that you're looking at the Cowboys and not pissed off that you are probably going to, if you win this game, you'll be 9-5. The Cowboys will be 6-8, but they could potentially still be going to the playoffs and you're not.
Oh, you gotta love it, man.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm going to take the Cowboys in this one. I know what you're thinking. Julian, are you crazy? Like a fox. Yeah, I'm going to take the Cowboys. So the Rams are actually 1.5 point favorites, 2 on the road. So that tells you what Vegas is thinking about this Cowboys team right now. Jason Garrett's in free fall. It's a mess, but I think that they're just going to take advantage of potentially an Eagles loss.
I mean, and I think that's the thing is the Cowboys, everybody, I think they know how bad they've been performing recently. I don't see the Cowboys losing another one in a row, right? And so I think that the Cowboys are also going to bounce back. And I think they understand that this is their season is basically on the line with this game. If they can win this game, they basically clinch their division, right? If they lose this game, then, you got to hope that you win out the rest of the year. But I think they know the playoff implications. They know that this is their season, and this is probably going to be their biggest game of the year. So I think I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
If they lose, Jason Garrett fired right after the game. It's getting close. It's like, I know they said they'll stick with him throughout the end of the season, but God bless, if you lose another game and let's say you get embarrassed again.
I know, and I just never know with Jerry Jones. Like Jerry Jones, I think that's the thing. He likes Garrett just way too much. He's too comfortable with Garrett. I just don't think that he wants to be the bad guy, but that's why you have to be able to separate the GM roles, the owner roles, and the friend roles, right? Like you can be friends with somebody, but at the end of the day, like this is business. And when you are the largest franchise in the NFL, which for no apparent reason, right? But you are, right? You're supposed to be America's team. You got to be able to make those tough decisions and say, hey, Jason Garrett, you're not getting the job done. And Jerry Jones is just too buddy-buddy with him. And so I think Jason Garrett will probably last the whole season, honestly. I don't see Jerry Jones firing him, even though he should.
Fair enough. Okay, so big Sunday night game. So this one was actually flexed into Sunday night. The Buffalo Bills at 9-4 will be going into Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is 1.5 point favorites at home. lot on the line for both these teams right here. So potentially you're looking at both your wild card teams here. If you're the Steelers, you just need this win because you need to keep pace. In theory, if right now you're tied in record with both the Titans and the Texans, so one of whoever the loser is going to be the wild card there, and you have an opportunity to jump them by a game if you win this matchup. If you're the Bills, you still have an opportunity to, in theory, win the AFC East. Could you imagine Tom Brady and the Patriots having to go on the road in wild card weekend?
Oh man, just think about how much cheating would happen then.
Man, dude, you're hot this episode.
I'm just saying they're cheaters. They cheated. And if they don't get a bye, and they're a wild card, they're definitely cheating.
Okay, so with that said, pick a winner.
I'm going to stick with my strategy of no matter what happens, there's going to be something that pleases me. And so I'm going to take the Bills, right? If the Bills win this, I'll say, hey, I told you so. And then if the Steelers win, I'll be even more ecstatic, right? Because that's my team. But to be honest, I think right now the Steelers are just relying a lot on their defense. And we've sort of seen what that sort of does with teams like the Bears, right? Where you're so reliant on your defense that eventually, like, if the offense is not able to keep up, which our offense has been okay and it's been a lot better with Duck Hodges, but still, like, we're just so limited. And we get Juju Smith-Schuster. I think he's healthy. He got upgraded to healthy this week. But still, I worry about our offense. And our defense has just been carrying our team and the load this entire time that eventually things are going to slow down, right? And the Bills, they are a really good team. They're a scary team. They're a team you don't really want to match up with. So I'm going to take the Bills in this one.
Well, I guess the thing is your strategy is more dependent on my pick more than anything. So with that said, I actually do like the Bills. But Steelers at home, I'm going to go with the Steelers. I just think that at a certain point, I think the Steelers just have that legacy that's coming into play because Tomlin is coaching out of his mind this year. Who knows? Maybe he threw some names in the hat. I don't know if you are an avid Gridiron Heights watcher, but I saw this episode that is like just a calm, relaxed Mike Tomlin just next to empty lockers that used to say Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and Ben Roethlisberger. Man, you have to think things are so much more calm in Pittsburgh these days.
Oh, yeah. So real quick, what I'm going to say about Mike Tomlin is he always gets a whole lot of crap from the Steelers fan base. I used to be one of them. I used to be like, look, Mike Tomlin's underperforming. When you have, 3 future probably Hall of Famers, which maybe not anymore, right, with the way that Antonio Brown's been acting and Le'Veon Bell going bowling after game or being sick and all that stuff. But still, like, you had that big 3, which we've said before is almost like an NBA sort of type thing, right? You don't really see it in the NFL. And Mike Tomlin wasn't able to get a ring. Now I'm like, man, Mike Tomlin's a great coach. Like, the fact that he's gone through all of this adversity this season and still even been able to keep us in the conversation for a wild card, I got to give it to him. I'm not going to say that Mike Tomlin should be on the hot seat for at least another 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, right now, he guaranteed another season where he will not finish under 500. That's amazing in itself. If your worst season is what that one, last season where they finished 8-7-1, that's your worst year. I'll take that. Most franchises would take that.
Yeah, and that's with your starting quarterback goes out, then your backup quarterback sucked, right? So you're on your third string. Duck Hodges got elevated from the practice squad to be a quarterback. And, he's playing out of his mind for his talent level. You've had Juju Smith-Schuster has been hurt these past few games. You lost Antonio Brown. You lost Le'Veon Bell. James Conner has been hurt. I got to give it to Mike Tomlin. He's been a fantastic coach this year.
Keep your eyes peeled for that potential Le'Veon Bell reunion. I've heard rumblings.
I have too, but I hope we don't. I mean, the Jets wanting to get rid of him, I don't want him back.
Apparently you guys do, though. Either way.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, so Oh, did I pick? Yeah, I picked the Steelers. All right. So let's go Monday night. So you could definitely tell when ESPN was making the schedules here or working with the NFL to make the schedules, they thought that they were going to get Andrew Luck versus Drew Brees in this matchup. So now they just have the Colts going into New Orleans. New Orleans is coming off that just, again, slobber knocker of a match against the Niners. It's going to be interesting to see how they can bounce back. I mean, that was a tough one for them, you know. That was a tough one for all teams. But on the bright side, they don't have to tackle George Kittle this week. What an animal. Like, I just got to give some George Kittle up. So we talked about how much would I have to pay you to take a punch from Deontay Wilder? How much would I have to pay you to try and tackle George Kittle in an open field?
I mean, everybody knows I'm 5'6" and 170, right? Like that dude is just trucking through me, man. I would still have to be paid a little bit more to take a punch from Deontay Wilder, just straight on the chin. But you'd have to pay me a lot of money for me to try to tackle that dude. Like he would obliterate me for sure.
He was just carrying 3 Saints players while a guy was tugging at his face mask for 20 yards.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Guaranteed concussion if I try to tackle him. And not for him, for me.
Yeah, I mean, the only player that was legitimately I think we talked about like all-time highlights. Mm-hmm. That was like George Kittle's like beast mode run there.
Oh yeah.
Always happens against the Saints for some reason.
Maybe he just hates the Saints.
No, I'm just saying, like in general, like people just having that beast mode moment, just running over Saints defenders for 20, 30 yards. Okay, well, with that said, game. I think the Saints are just a better team. The Colts are just not the same team that started this year. Mm-hmm. And they've fallen off out of the playoff contention. They lost the game against the Bucs this past weekend. Mm-hmm. I just don't think they have the offensive talent to necessarily get in any kind of shootout with the Saints. So, yeah, they'll take New Orleans.
Yeah, I agree. I think I'm going to go with the Saints. The Colts have sort of been on that little slide, and it was a good story, right? Andrew Luck, and, we're still able to compete through adversity and unexpected, our quarterback left. The Colts still have, like, a scrappy team for sure, but I'm going to take the Saints in this one.
Okay. Well, that does it for another episode. Kind of a long one. We had a lot of topics to work through. We had to go through your rant about the cheating, dirty cheating, lying Patriots organization.
I hate them. Cheaters.
Hate them. We had UFC talk. We had MLB talk. Man, this was a journey today. But you know what? That does it for episode 20 of the Slumpbuster with Juju and Dre. 20 episodes, man. We're 6 more weeks. We'll be at half a year. Can you believe how fast that's flown by?
I know, it's crazy, especially when we first started this, right? It was sort of just an idea we were just passing around. And I wouldn't even say like an idea. It was just let's podcast, like almost a joke in a sense. And we're just like, hey, let's do it. And, it's been a great time. It's been extremely fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you move from just casually talking about sports to actually having to do the time and research and like, oh, that's a unique topic that just came up or that. I mean, it's legitimately a whole endeavor, but it couldn't be done without like all the great people we have to work with so far. So, I mean, props to like Eris, Cristian coming along with us, Bobby helping us out with some power ranks too on the website. We have a great team to work with. You guys will get to know them here shortly. We're actually going to be doing a little thing for Christmas. I'm going to be returning home. Actually, speaking about that, before I actually move on, so Saturday, my Aggies are getting that revenge. We're coming for you guys. Guns up, boy. Guns up.
Not in the pit. Not in the pit, Juju.
Not in the pit. A lot of people are like, what the hell are they even talking about? UNM alumni across from me, NMSU alumni proud right here. The greatest rivalry in sports. The Rio Grande rivalry is reignited. And we're getting revenge. You cannot come in our house and expect us not to return the favor. How? Stealing away our coach just to take those L's?
Don't worry, Juju. We're going to get the W. Go Lobos.
All right. All right, guys. Well, thank you for staying tuned with us. We will be back next week. Have a great one. Peace.